Idlewise Board of Commissioners meeting. It's 9 a.m. and the first thing we'll do is make a motion to discuss and approve the agenda. So I make that motion.
Second.
And do we need to modify this agenda? There's no need for a non-public session today.
Not today.
And we're planning on the water operator to appear at 9:30 or so?
Yeah.
We're open.
Okay, so all in favor of approving the agenda as it is, say aye.
Aye.
3-0. Next, we'll go to the approval of the minutes of the last day of 2024, December 31st. And let me bring that up. I had a significant modification to that. While I bring that up, you have any changes you'd like to see on that?
Yeah, two minor ones. On item 6, scheduled public appearance, Nick Skagel, bullet point 3 reads, Nick agrees to reach out to NHDES regarding criteria and/or recommendations for well inspections. So for well inspections, that A needs to be taken out. And then the big one, for well inspections and what restrictions are there in decommissioning a well. It kind of reads a little that are there in decommissioning. Reads a little awkward to me. I'd like to say what restrictions exist for decommissioning a well. And I think that becomes clearer in my mind. Then at public appearance on bullet point number 2, I'd like to add to the second sentence after an individual should direct questions and concerns directly to VDOE Administrator Office, then I'd like to add, or at public comments portion of BOC meetings. That's it.
Can I see your minutes? I think my Word file got messed up here a little bit. Okay, so it's funny that the word, Microsoft had a problem with the word analytical.
Oh.
And
Oh.
what they were offering was the same thing that you had written, except they had an extra space between the S. But anyway, forget about that. The
Okay,
big thing
thanks.
was on scheduled appearances with Nick, the engineer.
Yes.
The third bullet down says Nick agrees to reach out to New Hampshire DES.
Yeah.
That should be completely stricken. That was a motion, seconded, to have Nick contact DES to discuss shutting the, I'm trying to remember, I put the exact words in because I went back to the video to get it off.
Yep.
And I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Okay, but it was to discuss shutting down Muddy Beach now and permanently.
And you voted on that?
Yep, 3-0.
Okay, I don't recall that. I'll have to watch the video.
Yeah, you'll have to do an instant replay on what you were doing at the time. Back it up. Pull out the flags.
What? No.
So I'll send you that.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
And that was,
Muddy Beach. Okay.
so you want to take that whole bullet out, he wasn't agreeing to it. We made a motion, and the language is very important
Yeah.
because it was not only do it now, but also permanently.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's it? That's all you had?
I didn't have anything.
Okay.
Oh, here it is.
It's okay, you can still send it to her.
Yeah. Okay. So now at 9:04, we'll move to approving of manifest. And the first one we have is an operation.
We didn't vote.
Yeah.
On the minutes?
Yeah.
For
All
the
in favor of the
amendments.
minutes as adjusted?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
3-0.
Yep.
9:04, operations and payroll manifest for $16,713.14. I'll make a motion to discuss and approve this manifest.
Second.
Discussion. Anything noteworthy? I saw two 18-wheelers of rock salt came in.
Yep.
That's another 42 tons of rock salt.
That's that 3,581, about almost $3,600 worth.
Yep. So it's the weather conditions have had the need for that much rock salt on
Yeah.
the paved roads.
For sure.
What else was noteworthy? They were paying heating bills and fuel bills. There was toolboxes.
Yep. Yep, we did. We
These-
purchased the
You
tools.
saw the toolboxes and the tools?
Yep, that's
Yep,
part of the Northway credit card. Yep.
Right.
Yes, and this is the first Northway that we're, credit card
Actual payment, yes.
that we're seeing?
Yes,
Nice.
and I did include, and I called because it didn't fully do all of December. So I got the balance through the end of December, and that's what I'm paying.
Paris Farmers, we bought 50-pound bags of calcium chloride to melt the ice that,
Calcium flakes, yep, to
Yeah.
get that water running over there on West Bergamo and Sways.
in two scoops with those shovels.
Yeah, I bought a couple of new snow shovels. The one we had was pretty old.
They don't last
You think?
forever.
No, they don't. So it was due time for a couple of new snow shovels.
Any other highlights you want to discuss on that? Any questions?
No, I was okay.
All in
with it.
favor of approving the manifest for $16,713.14, say aye.
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 3-0. Next, we move on to the water assessment manifest of $1,757.91. I'll make a motion that we discuss and approve this manifest.
Second.
And this was basically paying DuBois and King Engineering for the Como project and paying Eversource for the Summit and Chicora pump houses.
Yeah, those were the two missing from this is for November, it's not December now,
Okay.
so,
Did you notice whether this has?
no, it does not.
It has
Open
first
the
power?
next bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't the Como Zone PRV design, isn't that coming out of a
Warrant article?
warrant article?
Yes. Is that coming out of a line item?
I'll make sure that it is,
Yeah, I guess this says 4194.64
yeah.
in the chart of accounts. So it's
Does anyone recall what the article is called? Is it
I looked it up
Is it Como or is it?
It was.
Article number 8?
Yeah, and it was Como Zone Engineering.
Okay, great.
Here's Dinah.
All right. All right, I'll make sure that that's coded
Okay.
correctly.
So all in favor of approving this $1,757.91 water assessment manifest?
Aye.
Aye.
3-0. And at 9:08, we move to the DPW report.
Okay. I guess I'll start off with, like you say, the sand and salt there. Yeah, it might seem a little like a lot. We haven't had the heavy snowstorms really, except that Thanksgiving one. But the rain and the ice storms have been quite a few. I've documented everything, and we've had 12 events. If you can believe it, yeah, where there's been a lot of icing and rain, and which creates the icing of the gravel roads more. But the paved roads themselves have been icy with some of these sleet and ice events. You know, a troubled corner as you go by the playground and try to go up Appinvale Way, and that is an always icy spot. The rest of the pavement might not be icy, but that spot is, and you find that out the hard way sometimes.
Oh, Jesus.
And then that backside of Aspen is the same
Wow.
way, coming off of Gretchen, going up Aspen. You get past Jungfrau in that corner over there. So yeah, you know, I've been keeping it at bay, and again, I've got it all documented, the usage, and I think I made some copies for Jen has in the office, and I'll add to that. I think that was up to, last time we did that was about eight or nine events, and I've got the other 3
Oh, wow.
that trail behind that. And you know, and then not only the night of the storm itself, you know, sometimes you gotta go back the next day, and it's iced up again, and you gotta go retreating it
Early
again.
mornings.
So for my edification and for anybody who's watching, what is the proper sequence between salt and sand when we have these kind of super icy events?
The salt sticks to just the paved roads. We don't salt the gravel, because that just creates mud.
Grease.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Grease is the lingo they
Yeah,
use.
so sand sticks to the gravel, and the salt sticks to the pavement, as far as how we do it. Now, once in a while, a little sand will come down on, you have to put a little sand on the pavement, like, you know, in the heat of the battle, you're getting 6-8 inches, and you're plowing, you're not salting in between all that every time on
No.
the pavement, you know what I mean? So sometimes for our own traction, we'll spit a little sand out, so we can, you know, and obviously the public as well, but as we're plowing it down, you know, the snow's coming back down on top of it. For our own little traction to keep us going, we'll spit a little sand on the pavement. But otherwise, we really try not to sand the pavement, and we do not want to salt the gravel.
Right.
If that makes it any clearer.
Okay, I'm not firing on all 6 cylinders this morning, so, okay, so you sand the paved roads.
Salt the pave, sand the gravel.
Sand the gravel.
Oh, sand the gravel roads.
Right, you don't put
Sand
salt
the
on the gravel roads.
Right.
It melts it, turns it into water, mixes turns to mud on the surface
Right.
with ice underneath it, and now you're in grease.
Right.
All the plowers call it grease.
Right.
It's
Okay.
wicked.
It just slips up, you know.
Some road agents would put a little salt down and not let it get down to the gravel, just to rough up this, and otherwise has never done that.
Right.
Because you don't do that, I don't think, on the slopes that we have,
Right.
and that's really a tricky thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll call
no-
it a hot mix, you
So
know.
no,
when you
no
mix
salt on
some
gravel
salt with
roads,
that.
just sand. But sand goes on the paved roads, but no salt except
Salt on the paved roads, a little bit of sand
a little bit of sand.
for
Okay.
traction while they're out working on them.
Right, right.
Okay.
Salt, pavement, sand, gravel.
Got it.
So that, you know, so like I said, I've been documenting the storms and, you know, trying to get a figure. You know, I've been right, you know, 8 yards of sand was thrown out that storm, you know, 2 yards of salt or whatever, you know what I mean? So like I said, I've got it all written down, and
Do you want to send us scanned copies of what he's giving you?
Didn't I send scans already?
Not that I know.
I don't think so.
I believe I have,
Oh,
but I'll check.
Not
okay.
You mean ever?
Yeah, the
most recent ones?
Yeah, I scanned them in and,
I don't think I got them.
okay.
You can check, just send it to
I'll
us
check.
again.
so
Send it with the date you send it. There's some biting remark about having to send it.
Believe me, I will.
so I did some research about the jackhammering. I talked with Coleman's, and what I'm finding out is I called another place Pine River Pit down in Ossipee, and the best results are with a big machine. It's going to be a metal track machine.
I spent some time researching the same thing. The other thing I found with contractors with full-size excavators and steel tread machines, which
Right.
we don't want on.
Right. So what we're gonna have, what's gonna either have to happen is, they'll have to keep. Obviously, they're gonna move it around. I mean, up on Presidential, there's 4 or 5 different spots, say, where
Yeah.
they could probably track the machine around and do that. But again, it's not ideal because we don't really want to track a machine around on the roads. But otherwise, they're gonna have to keep reloading it and moving it and reloading it and moving it and reloading it and moving it. And when we have 15 to 20 spots, not just in that area, obviously we got other spots down Upper Lake, we got spots on, West Bergamo, there's a couple, there's spots all over the district.
They have hammers that mount to skid steers.
Yeah,
I just don't know any. I couldn't find anybody in the state.
I think the problem.
I'm thinking that we could find a contractor local that has a skid steer and make a deal where we invest in the hammer and see if we can get more done by investing in the hammer to put on their machine.
Right. Yeah, I think again, talking to some guys, you know, and seeing if they're interested in that might be, you know, it's something. I think the problem is what I'm finding out talking to these guys is you don't get the power
Without it being big and
without it. That's why they use these bigger machines. Because I talked with them about, you know, Coleman's got all sorts of equipment. I said, why wouldn't you use one of your rubber tired machines?
Yeah.
Since you just don't get the thunder.
Really?
That's why, you know, they have the big machines. I mean, I've been up at the pit getting loaded where they're breaking rocks half the side of this
yeah.
building, and they're,
Right.
and they're going right through them and
well,
stuff. But
we're not looking to break big glacier eggs out of the ground.
No,
we're just
I-
trying to chip out a
I get it.
drainage.
right, no, I understand. Again, it's something
I get what you are seeing because
we
I
could talk about. I mean, again, this is what these guys are talking
Yep.
about. I know Ossipee used this Pine River pit, and we're real happy with what they did. They had like 1,000-foot run that they had to run a ditch line out of ledge. You know, and he seems to be the most reasonable. It's again, I'm looking to get a price for a warrant article
Yep.
Yeah.
for you. So what he was talking about was like 200 to 250 a day. So you're looking at either 1,600 a day to $2,000 a day. You know,
Wait,
again, it's gonna
What's
be
$250 a day then?
it's either 200 or 250 an hour. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Now,
okay,
sorry.
right, which
And what kind
missed
of,
that.
what
Way too
kind of
big.
equipment was this?
But this
still
is a big
super heavy
excavator.
equipment?
Yes.
Full-size excavator with steel
Steel
treads,
tracks, which we're trying to avoid
Avoid.
having driving around in the district.
which is against our regulations.
Right.
Even during the good weather.
Correct. Tracking it up and down the
Yeah, the
roads.
weight of those machines and the teeth on them, and the
Right.
treads
The
against
metal
asphalt.
tracks tear up pavement.
And
You know.
they're too big to be transported on a trailer.
No, they get transported on a trailer, but every time they pretty much get transported on a trailer, it's a cost. So to move it from Upper Lakeview to West Bergamo, there's a cost. To move it from West Bergamo down to Visp, there's a cost. To move it from, you know what I mean?
No, I understand. I got it.
So,
Whereas your solution is purchase a jackhammer and rent a skid steer that jackhammer can attach to, and do the work
Or
ourselves.
do a deal with a contractor where we're subsidizing him getting the jackhammer, because those things don't last forever either.
Right.
Like, when we did the Rhineac tank, I think they had to buy a new one in the middle of the project.
oh, they were hammering for weeks.
Months.
Months.
3 months.
Yeah, well, you know, like you say, the hammers get worn down.
And
you
he
gotta
was
replace
taking
it.
out a huge base of rock.
Oh, yeah.
The size of the footprint of the tower, actually bigger than that.
Right.
Which, that should have been dynamited, but that's another story.
Yeah.
So what's the average cost of a jackhammer?
I was
The
saying
size that we would
from
need.
4 to 10,000.
To purchase.
Which, if it's part of the price of getting the job done, you see what the prices are of hiring somebody to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're in a range where we can get more projects done depending upon what we can work out with the contractor. So it's good you have these numbers.
Right.
250 an hour, 1,600 a day,
A day.
plus transport, plus mobilization, right?
Right, so the
potentially,
mobilization fees.
And that's Pine.
That's Pine River Pit.
Where are
In
they
Ossipee?
located?
They're down in Ossipee, I believe.
Okay.
Okay.
So
good.
how many sites could they potentially tackle in one day?
Well, again, it all depends. Like, let's say one spot might take 20 minutes to an hour, another spot might take 3 hours.
Yeah.
You know, it all depending on the situation. That's, you know, we don't know.
Okay.
That's the unknown.
But I'm just, how many sites do we have? About
About
does-
15 to 20.
About 15 to 20.
Wow.
So if they could do potentially, let's just be real conservative, 2 sites a day.
Yeah,
10
well, that's kind of what I was figuring. It
10
might be
days.
something that might take 2 weeks. If you put a figure of, let's say, $15,000 or $10,000 hypothetical for the warrant article, right? Now, you may not get every one of them this year. Maybe you get 8 sites. Maybe you get 10 sites. You know, and then it's something you got to readdress next year. You know
Well,
what I
just
mean?
my back of the envelope calculations already has us between 16 and 20,000 through the Pine River. If conservative, they
Right.
can only do two sites per day.
Right,
At that 1,600 a day rate.
right.
And then you have to, I don't know what the mobilization fees are, but you got to tack extra onto that.
This
So
gets complex.
yeah.
Because I just talked to FEMA this morning, I don't want to get too far into it, but I don't want this to go too far either. We have an obligation from them for a budget of $463,000, of which we pay 25% if we do this, for ditching. 463,000.
And this would be in there,
That's the possible. And
could be in there.
so this could go on. This conversation could go on all day based on
Absolutely.
that.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about this a little bit more,
Right,
but I think we should thank you for getting these numbers
no
from
problem.
Pine River and move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where we're at with that. So, obviously throwing a lot of sand and salt around here and there, and you run into your everyday things. You know, what we had to replace. Well, we didn't replace yet, but I made a connection with the White Mountain fabrication guy right there up on 16, just past the Dunkin', or right by the Dunkin' Donuts there. You know what I mean? The fabrication shop. Because
Yeah.
he's a Downeaster.
Near the Kank.
Yes.
The welding company.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's a Downeaster dealer.
Yeah.
So rather than running all the way to Limerick, Maine and get parts for the sanders, I made a connection with him. So he's getting me a new chain for the same chain would fit both sanders. We had to take 2 links out of the 18 sander. I believe both of those are the original belts. It's a belt driven that drives the material down to the back through the spreader and down to the spinner. So we talked about getting a chain. I was going to go out to Limerick and get one,
Yeah.
but I talked with him. He's got one on order for me. He's getting them for me in the next couple of days. So it just makes sense. He's got parts over there and everything else. It's just
Nice.
convenient.
Yeah,
And what we noticed on the 2019 spreader is it's been shifted out of place. The welds had broken loose and the whole sander was shifted, so it needed quite a bit of repairs. So I got some metal from him, some stainless steel, and we've been repairing it. The guys are finishing it up now. And while we were repairing it, there was an old piece of stainless steel that came out of the TerraStar that was part of that, had a live body in the truck itself. And this steel's been sitting around the shop for all those years now. So we're making a headboard and a rear board for the spreader. So when we're loading it, it's not going down in
Funnels
between.
it?
Yeah, it's not going down in between the head of the cab and it's getting all over that shield that we had replaced on the 19 and corroding all that.
That's what Steve was cutting yesterday?
Yes. So we've been working on that. You're gonna see a bill from him coming in with some steel on it
Yeah.
and that belt.
okay.
So these chains, there's 2 solutions. You could get off-the-shelf chains from the place in Limerick, but you could get it fabricated, custom.
No.
No, he's a dealer. of it.
He's a dealer of the same company
Two.
that makes it. So they're all made for this. They're not.
Okay.
There's not some kind of,
Oh, so the
not
metal
made-
fabrication
order.
shop is a dealer?
Yes, he's
Okay.
also a dealer of the Downeaster, which is the product that we
Yeah.
have.
Gotcha, okay.
So it just made,
In
they're both
Hennick-
Downeaster
In
dealers.
Henniker plows.
And Henniker plows,
Yeah.
yes. So he's hooked us up with some metal,
Okay.
some steel to put these things back together, and the guys have done a nice job, a great job getting
Wow,
that spreader.
cool.
It's more beefy now than it was out of the factory. So we
nice.
shouldn't have that issue again with that. So,
How long do they typically last? A couple of seasons, or?
well, the stainless steel should last quite a while, but like I said, and the steel's good on it, it got torqued, and that could be part of, the deal that we're dealing with.
I guess what I'm concerned about is if the chain totally goes during a
The
standing
chains-
operation, you're SOL for the rest.
The
without
chains are a different story, so
Okay.
correct. The chains got nothing to do with the body of the
Right.
spreader. The chain's a mechanical part,
Right.
and they wear out like anything else over time, and they stretch. Metal, does
Yeah.
stretch, and so the chains have stretched out on it, and they make them so you can take links in, take the link out of them.
Yeah.
And there's also adjustments. Well, the adjustment on it comes to a certain point where you can't adjust it anymore.
Gotcha.
You got to take a link out,
Right.
and when you get to that point, the chain should probably be replaced
Yep.
because it's not long for the world. And what's going to happen is what you just said. It's going to come apart on you in the middle of a storm.
Yeah.
So that's why I want a backup chain.
Okay.
Well, that's what I was concerned about, having a spare, so to
Right.
speak, for.
Right. So
when-
that's
when-
where we're at.
When you reach that point where the existing one can't be adjusted.
Right, and that's where we're at with
Yeah.
the 18. The 19 still has some adjustment in it,
Okay.
and hopefully isn't as beat up as the 18 right now. But we got one on the way, so that's that. And then other things go. We're replacing the spinner on one of them. We had one, and bearings have gone on them, which we had. But these are parts that I like to have. They're relatively inexpensive. The bearings, I like to keep a few in hand because, again, middle of the storm, we had to replace bearings on one of the spreaders.
Right.
Yeah.
And that type of thing. Hey, man. So just stuff we're going through that you'll see in the coming weeks, those types of things on there, on the manifest. So I remember last time I was here, I think I spoke about chains for the big truck.
Yes.
I've got the old set from the front that was in better shape than the rear, on the rear of the big truck right now. And Tucker got back to me, they're on order, I guess he's waiting for them, this is BB chain. And so they're like roughly $470 for the set of chains for the big truck. So I did speak to him about another set of chains for the grader. Because that's got 3 sets, because it's got 6 tires. And those are $1,016 a set. What we thought, now I have all 6 sets that could go on the grader as is. A couple of the sets are on the older side. And what we were thinking, to add more chains to the rear set, the rear tandems, we were gonna take the older set and put all the cross links and add more cross links to the chains that we have to have more traction on the grader. And then utilize the new set as well. So I don't know if it was something that you guys wanna give the okay on to buy another set of chains for the
One
grader.
set?
One set,
And how much a set?
$1,016. I know it seems a bit steep,
No, it's for the grader.
but they're a big
Those
tire.
big tires,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But with some incidents last year where that slid off some ice here and there, if we beef up the chains in the back with the older set, with what we have, I mean, I could go and buy a bunch of cross links and buttons for them, but I think you'd spend more money than you would buying the whole new set.
The new set goes on the front tires.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's only 2 for, it handles 2 tires.
Right.
So a set.
Right.
Okay. got it.
right.
And the grader's 4-wheel drive. You know, the weight's in the back.
Right.
So
Yeah,
the new chains don't have all the weight on them. They're
Right.
Just keeping the steering from
Oh,
sliding
yeah.
around.
right.
So I'll make a motion that we approve purchase of a set of chains for the grader for $1,016.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
3-0.
Thank you. So another thing, like I'm talking about the welding, I just see this here in my notes too. Our welder, it works fine. It's been a good welder for us. It was a Napa brand back when they bought it 10 years ago or whatever. They discontinued making those. They don't have them, so they've been tough to get the tips and the stuff for them and things like that. So using stainless steel welding, it's a different wire, which you could buy the wire all day long because all the welders that weld stainless steel use the same wire. But the tips are different and all that. You got to use a different tip and a different this and that. I can't seem to get them. So we did find them down in Ossipee. They had a box, a bin out the back. So I grabbed a bunch of them. So it's, I think, about $150.
Yeah.
There'll be a bill. I didn't get them yet. They were
I
gonna
think
get
it
them
just
for
came
me.
in.
It might have.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be a bill for that. I just wanna give you a
Okay.
heads up. But I just thought, because the welder's
Oh, yeah.
good, it works, but if we're gonna keep continuing having trouble getting parts in the future, I kinda stocked up. I don't know, I
Yeah.
thought it was a smart decision.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Beautiful.
sooner or later, if they don't make those parts anymore.
Right, I mean, it
Then the
beats
welder
buying a new
becomes no
welder
good.
at that point.
Yeah.
What about using the guy off the Kank that you just got this chain from?
I'd have no problem
Because
using,
I always understood that welding stainless steel was not so easy, that there was expertise in that.
yeah, you gotta
You're
have
not-
to.
You're not doing kitchen appliances, you're doing a sander, so.
Yeah, no, between Tony and Steve, Steve's got some knowledge with it.
Yeah.
And between Tony and him, I mean, they're doing, it's
Okay.
awesome. And, you know, by all means, we could bring something over there, but it's gonna cost a lot
Well,
more
yeah.
than us doing it.
Yeah, except we're buying this equipment that we don't use every day and,
Well, we do use the welder, not every day, obviously, but I mean, it's been a handy thing to have. The other day, in the middle of the storm, there's a U connector there that pulls the plow up on the front of my, you know, that pulls the front plow up. That just ripped right off the truck, so in the middle of the battle, Steve had to weld that on.
Yeah.
You know, so if we didn't have a welder or something like that, we're not doing those types
yeah,
of
but
things.
that's not stainless steel, right?
No,
How much for the stainless steel equipment?
I'm not positive. He ran a tab up for me with the chain and everything. And we've had a couple pieces that we bought from him.
You're talking about buying more stuff to
No, I don't need to buy anything else. I
Okay.
bought stuff, and then with what we had, with that old sheet from the TerraStar, we fabricated, and
So it's moot, you already bought it.
I already bought it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also the time value of money. If something you needed stainless steel welding done and the guy doesn't have capacity at the time to do it, we've got the parts to do it. So I guess for the moment, it's a
I think it was a good find.
smart
Well,
move.
the sander was inoperable
Yeah.
if we didn't do anything to it at that
Yeah.
point, with how twisted it had gotten.
So we just don't know how much it's gonna be?
I'm not sure right now, the metal pieces that we bought from them are, no. I mean, I could look up what stainless steel angle iron cost.
Okay, let's move on.
That's basically about all I got.
Very good. Do you have anything for Jeff?
No, other than continue to be safe out there on these
Look at this timing.
conditions.
Nice work.
Yes,
Perfect.
Jeff is being very mindful. All
All right, thank you.
right, Jeff,
Thank you.
thank
Take your
you.
hat.
Yes.
Yeah, you need it today.
I need it. That hand is brutal.
Yeah, it's biting.
All right, man, it's all yours. See ya.
See you, my friend.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Good morning.
Good morning, happy new year.
Happy New Year.
Belated.
Do you have subjects? I have some.
I assume some of them are gonna run in the same pathway here, so, I guess the biggest thing discussed since previous meeting was that water issue up on,
Young
Schweiss.
Schweitz in, West Bergamo. So I said the email, there is in fact a meter in that pit, so I don't know, in my head, I thought that was part of they never put one in there, so anyway, we were able to look.
We have a new definition of asset management
Yes,
between all of us.
yes, so there is a meter in that pit.
We had a
Um,
picture, we showed Nick Skagel, said, there's a meter in there, and I had a picture, I said, yeah, that, I
Yeah.
don't know what it's
Magically
metering,
appeared.
but it's
Yeah,
there.
it was in my head that wasn't included, even though we checked, just,
It was the
here
nature
we
of
are.
that project.
But, yeah, so with that meter, we were able to verify, and to answer your question, it does, so it feeds the last handful of homes on Upper Lakeview down to the bleeder on that road, so from the pit to the bleeder, whatever that is, 2 to 3 homes, 4 homes are on that section of line, then obviously that PRV pit feeds down to the, Schweitz Bergamo zone.
There was no trench ever dug out to Upper Lakeview from the new pit. So I don't know how that line was tied into the output.
They are,
You know what I'm saying?
yes, so they,
Unless they ran it back. See,
There's a
there
second
had to be
feed
a
line.
T that came off Upper Lakeview to go down Briggy. And they cut into that line and put the pit in.
there was something they found over there, Mark, that I'm trying to remember how they went about it. Of course, I wasn't there, so we would have to get a, field notebook. But it is, as far as I know, I mean, there is definitely there's a line going down, and then there's a line coming out to the side that the description I was given is that it is to,
They came back up onto Lakeview to feed those houses.
yeah.
See,
Well, before we gave final payment to.
that?
Who did the job?
Let's-
I know we checked in with them.
But we
time to
asked for the
time.
drawing.
One conversation, this is important.
But I know that, but I thought that would have the information, the drawings that we asked for.
Well, Nick has his drawing that they were supposed to do, which I asked him to send that. So we're gonna get PDF. I forwarded you the PDF of, Como.
I saw that.
and I'll be forwarding you the one that it wasn't in the contract by the way that the previous board let the contractor write the contract. He didn't refer to anything that Nick did. So the contract didn't bind it to anything Nick designed. So I'm gonna get the drawing. Now, the field notes are probably more important as to where they put this thing, and I imagine with a metal detector, we would see new fittings that tied the existing line back in that feeds I think it's 5 houses that go down Upper Lakeview from the pit, all on the same side of the road. Including the one, there's only one house across the road, number 21, directly across from the pit, uphill.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm in my head. I'm trying to remember how in the heck they did that, because they'd found a tail line or something, or there was a.
Wouldn't the
I mean, they
proof
couldn't
be,
have done it without digging back to Upper Lakeview. So
wouldn't the proof be that we shut the
Down
valve
the
off
line,
and
see if the bleeder
see the
stops.
bleeder
Yep.
shut off and then turn it right back on
Yep.
before
Yep.
it freezes up?
Yep.
And then we'd know.
Which we can absolutely do. I mean, we had it down to, you never ended up isolating anything the other day, right?
No.
Because that was what I told him. I said, shut off that bleeder line. But in the time he was watching it, it dropped down to 0.4 gallons per minute.
Yeah, it's bounced between 0.29 and 0.41 gallons.
Which is about what we expect those bleeders to be at. And, you know, we try to not take unnecessary risks with them, but I can tell you there's going to be a day that it's going to be, you know, sunny and 30, and we can go up there and do that.
So you shut the output of the vault off, so it didn't go down Riggy and it didn't go down the end of Upper Lakeview, right? Everything's shut off coming out of the PIV?
All we did was just look at the meter and monitor
shut it off.
for about 10, how long were you watching the meter for?
A minute?
Just a minute, okay,
Yeah.
so just watching that, but anyway, you saw 3 or 4 gallons per minute.
Yep.
Which I was like, okay, maybe we got something going on. That's when I was on with him. I was gonna have him shut off the zones. And in that same time, audibly heard the water stop and that usage dropped down to 0.4 gallons per minute continuous, so.
So the bottom line is you think it's not the water main?
Got it. That's the bottom line. I mean, with crazier things. I don't know where the West Bergamo main coming from Little Shore up West Bergamo. There's 6-inch main coming up that way. I don't know where that ends, but I mean, from where we dug that and the way the water was perking up, it was coming from uphill. It was not coming up the road. You know, at the closest point to where that water is, I would say if there were 6-inch main, which I don't expect there to be, because I don't know why we'd have the 2-inch and the 6-inch in the same area. But anyway, if we were to say, let's say that's a remote possibility that the 6-inch continues up that area, it would be at the closest point to where that water's coming up 20 or 30 feet away. So it would have to be traveling in a very odd way to get that water over there. So I'm sure it's not coming from the 2-inch down, down from Upper Lakeview. That I could say, and I would say I'm 99.9% that it's not coming from a water main in general. I think that what we found when we dug that bedrock is it's very shelved. It has some 2-foot swales in it, and I think, who knows, with different drainage changes, house builds, all these things, next thing you know, water kind of diverts to a different direction and it causes a new problem we didn't have before.
Well, we
We've seen
know
that.
somebody built an illegal camp type right on the downhill side of Upper Lakeview, right in front of the culvert. And we know that there's moving water up
In a
through
different direction.
a few days ago in that entire area. All around Idleways, all the brooks are still flowing water down into the pond.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Water's moving.
Water is moving. Yeah, I mean, it was
Yeah.
wet over there when we were, and I mean, the way that road's constructed, I mean, there might be 1.5 feet of material between it, the top of the road and the bedrock.
Yeah.
And so if you started digging in, like, we had a 30-foot opened up continuous piece of ledge. Water was kind of running on it, but the way the ledge was pitching was under the road, not, the road is built to pitch down to the culvert those guys installed, but the ledge is pitching going down the mountain. So the water is traveling under the road. I mean, again, this is not my forte, but you could tell that it was extremely wet under that
Wow.
road. So now if it's traveling under there and hitting anything that just kind of forces it upward as opposed to, because the ledge kind of came up down towards where we were digging. So I don't know. I know that it's odd for those guys because nothing, they said they've never seen water there, and it's like, I get it. I mean, I've seen it. I chased one on Hutwell 5 years ago that I had water shooting out of the banking 2 or 3 feet, and I said, there's no way that one's not a leak. So we just start chasing, the next thing you know, I'm 15 feet into the woods, and I'm like, it's groundwater.
And the only one here that might remember the tidal wave that came down that road once is completely bizarre and took everything with it. You might remember it. Came down and buried West Bergamo under a foot of gravel.
Yeah.
Paved road under a foot of gravel. Came down, went Little Shore, turned right into the driveway of Roy Prescott, the radio DJ used to have a house on Little Shore, and started taking the corner of his foundation out and went 50 yards out onto the pond, gravel,
Wow.
Really?
once.
Just happened and never happened again.
Yep. Unexplainable.
Just-
What was up there that captured a bunch of water and just let go all at once?
Right.
Couldn't see it from the road as it was building up, so I'm not surprised about that. I guess what the bottom line is here is from now, this point, we're gonna treat this as a road issue, not a water system issue until determined otherwise,
Yep.
which may not be until
And
spring.
unfortunately, there is nothing I can chase on the West Bergamo with any accuracy. That's, you know, we had seen an increase in usage of, you know, almost double what we typically, you know, what were we at, 130,000 a day?
127.
Of course, that correlated with our usage coming off the Summit Gravity Zone. That doubled from 3,800 to 7,500, all in the same time this leak, but now we're all right back down to normal because it was also Christmas week. So the same time we're
Right.
seeing these usage spikes, we dropped down to 90,000 a day in total usage, and the usage out of the, you know, Summit Gravity Zone dropped right off to, you know, back to normal as well. So,
So, can you get the as-built or the field notes from?
I can try. I know I can reach out to Andy, see if he can get me his book.
Otherwise, we'll have to do that shut-off test to see if the bleeder.
Yep.
Before we shut the bleeder off for the spring.
Yep, that's very
When
very
it's
practical.
convenient, that little test. So.
Yeah, I think I would try to avoid it right now just because those things can freeze real quick in
Sure.
cold weather. I mean,
Yeah,
it's all
not-
in
not
case of
today.
the ice.
Yeah, not
so,
today.
Yeah, no, we'll do it. We'll do it when we've got a little bit better weather. So I guess yes. Long story short, like I said to him, I said I almost wish it was a water system issue, so it was a fix that we had. But
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Right.
I don't believe it is.
By the way, before we move away from this subject, one thing is, it's not to take time from having these guys here, is we now have to treat this as a road issue, and that lady is trying to sell her house. And it's not a feature to have these cones and everything for prospective buyers in there, so we may have to invest a little extra to fix that up so that that house isn't impeded from being
see.
sold. Anyway, back to us.
Okay.
Subject here is the PRV itself, the valve.
Yep.
Nick says is not the one he wanted in there.
I'm sure it's not. It's a pretty standard run. It's very similar to the ones we have elsewhere, so I don't know what he was looking for, but
Well, if there is a recording of Nick being here last week, and you can hear his rundown. He is suggesting that he's talking to the clay valve people.
I saw that in the email.
Yeah.
So that's the combination PRV / data logger / XYZ.
Yeah.
Has a number of different functionalities to
Three
it.
functions, yes.
Okay.
So he's confirming that that's the one he wants to spec in the Como. And that's hanging him up, having the clay valve people get back to him and confirm the specs and have that discussion with them.
Okay.
But that would be pretty much what we're standardizing on, is that three-way valve.
Did it offer metering as well? Was that?
Yes,
It did. Okay.
meter logging too.
Yeah, I saw that. So data logging, meter.
It's
Yeah.
battery operated.
That's getting kind of the best of all worlds with that.
And imagine if we had these.
And it's okay in a wet environment. Obviously, that's why he's talking to these guys, finding out what the environmental conditions are and
Yeah.
everything else.
One of the things he wants to do is run a drain for the vault.
Saw that.
The length of the pipe that he wants to eventually put in at the intersection with Hotwell. But that means that the village would have to combine the installation of the pit with,
Or it certainly makes sense to.
then it's a money issue.
I think, ideally, obviously, Nick and I will get to the same meeting as we fine tune the spec here. I envision this slightly different, just with a pump out from a boost, I mean, it's pretty tough to beat a daylight drain. Very nice to have, no reliance on mechanicals, but just a simple,
As long as it doesn't freeze.
as long as it doesn't freeze or it doesn't build something in the end of it to stop it from flowing water. But outside of those things, a pump up system like a sump pump, just to.
I thought that you made that pretty clear at the time we met to launch the design.
Because where that sits is actually kind of a high point of that road,
Yeah.
where whether you go, I mean, there's brooks both directions, and maybe Nick's running into some discharge issuing, which can be a case. I don't get into that stuff. I don't know that it's a groundwater discharge of existing, so it's not any chemical issue or anything like that. So I don't imagine that's a problem. Just install some pump in there, within 100 feet of a brook or something, because that's obviously what's going to happen. Whatever we pump out of there will run down to the brook that's kind of more towards St. Moritz side. That would be the best option to me for simple. Now, maybe when we go and do the road, you have that prepped and you can, road and pipeline. If that's something we go in, maybe you put a daylight as well. I mean, I think having both would be great anyhow. But so that would be a short-term, maybe permanent
Pump
short-term
first,
solution.
daylight, drain when you do
If
put
and-
the water main in.
Yeah.
I hear you.
You know, that's it's certainly a heck of a starting point to have a consistent pump down. Now, again, we all know we'll have to go and, you know, we'll have to hook it up. It's not going to be something that works on its own or anything, but depending on the eaves, which I think the design of these is more of a Bilco style door, right? Not a you know, manhole, takes 2 people type of thing. So, you know, it's something once a month you could go carry a generator and hit the 4 PRV pits and pump them down, or, you know, you figure that kind of stuff out. How often we have to do it with regular groundwater, or, you know, if you ever have a leak in one, well, it is what it is. You're gonna have to pump it down and fix the leak. But without power to the pits, obviously the pump is only usable, and which is what we do. We go around this year, we throw our pumps in there and pump them down and inspect stuff. But having the ability to do just a generator as opposed to pumps and the hatch door, you know, the manhole covers, and depending on who I send over there, it's actually, you know, like 90-pound cover or something. It's not that easy to move. So ease of access would make this a simpler, more cost-effective thing to do more frequently. And like I said, we figure out how often you got to do it, because ideally, especially with the stuff he's looking at speccing, it's something you're not going to want to have, whether it's rated for it or not. You don't necessarily love to have electronics submerged constantly. So he'll have to. I'll take a look at the clay valve and see what the risk is with it. I just don't know. I'm not familiar with them.
He's talking about the XP2FD35.
I think he had that listed out on his drawing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I can take a look at it and chat with Nick about it, and but again, I guess that's probably why he's. I don't want to get inside his head and say what he's thinking, but my guess is doing the daylight drain so that he has the confidence that you're not going to have a submerged valve if you go with that style electronic valve. So I'm not 100% sure, but
I think we should do both.
yeah, me too. I think it's a feasible option for the short term to get the pit done, and then
Once we're digging the line, then throwing a 2-inch drain, 1-inch,
yeah, whatever you're
not
doing
that big
with
a
it.
deal.
Yep.
I know that Richard Heath would put a bag of rock salt on the daylight end of it,
Just keep it from freezing.
yeah, for a while. That was,
Yeah.
he did it in '95. I think that salt is probably gone.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Oh my God.
There's different ways of going about it. You can usually find a way to keep it from it depends on how consistent the water's running, and I think the biggest thing we have challenges with is if you screen it, and then if any debris gets into it, plug in your screen. But if you got a screen, try to keep animals love to get into them through that. So kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I think it would just require head check once in a while, make sure it's flowing and good, and deal with it from there. So
That'll never happen.
yeah, right. Can though, you add it into the list, but okay. So yeah, we'll. I think at this point, I saw the drawing. I think it's obviously good. I love the concept, as you guys know, of upgrading these pits and adding more. Anywhere we can get metering on a distribution is going to be a huge step in the right direction. As we talk about like what we're dealing with up there, that meter takes all the guesswork out of whether or not we had a leak up there. I had ruled it out via the the Summit Zone, and had a pretty good idea that it wasn't a leak, but that's just definitive. Now, there's no guesswork. So the more areas we get something like that in, the more we can kind of find a problem as it begins and not have to wait a month for it to surface and, cause road issues or whatever else. So,
So he figured there was 78 houses in the Como zone, and then he went to the tax database and figured 225 bedrooms. Decided that he would estimate the number of bathrooms based on that data, and assume that there's a dishwasher and a washing machine in each of the houses.
Yeah.
And calculated that the demand for that zone will be 65 to 125 gallon range. That's how he spec the con valve. clay
65 to
valve.
125,000 gallons per day range? Or 100
Gallons per minute.
65
to 125 gallons per minute. Then he talked about this Hunter's curve that's been a formula that they've used, was created in the 1930s or 40s, and
Sure.
he was off into engineering world there for a minute.
Yeah.
So he's thinking that this valve will be the standard valve, but it's really based on what it's servicing. And I'm thinking that we need to nail down what, I don't know if you ever saw what was put into the new pit at the top of
You
Bristol
got
Stock.
pictures, right? Of it?
The Bristol
Oh,
stock?
Bristol stock, no, I've never, no,
We don't even know how big that vault is, right?
no. I don't know if I've ever actually seen that vault, so.
You can't find the top of it now without,
Yeah.
without sweeping up
So I've
there.
been trying to find that vault.
That's
a
another
handful of
project for the
times.
spring, is that we
Yes.
all need a picnic lunch out at the
Yeah,
vault.
yeah, find the vault,
And,
A couple metal detectors.
verify the
Yeah.
well, I know where it
pressures.
is.
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I got a general idea, obviously, but
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, take the center of Edelboden, and that's across the road on the shoulder is where that thing is, and it's.
I mean, take the Jungfrau one, if I didn't know exactly where that was.
I don't know where that is.
Right, we happened to see that one, otherwise,
Right.
even metal detectors are not, I mean,
Wow.
you gotta kinda have a general idea. Once you know where it is, it's like, okay, well, you can kinda hone in on it, find it pretty quickly, we can get into that in 10 minutes, but.
So I don't know how big that vault is, whether we can
I believe-
retrofit one of these clay valves into it.
That I don't know. I know that the Jungfrau one was very tight. There was no room. There is no meter in that one, and I don't believe there's room for a meter
Oh,
in that one.
geez.
And it's too bad, because obviously that zone that goes down Grisson, Granville, Bergdorf, you know.
Imagine how much ahead would be if they
I know.
did do that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys could explore the option, changing the whole pit, and changing the size of it. Obviously, that's not something we want to really consider.
Right.
But adding a meter pit is something that can be discussed for, you know, you don't.
You don't need to do what we're doing
It
in
wouldn't be
Como.
ideal, right? I mean,
Right.
obviously in the future, we'd want to do it so it's a package pit.
We'd
that
have
you
to
can
be
get
pretty
into.
strategic.
But if we took like the manhole cover, like say we remove Como's you know, that setup, we could take that, something that you're not expecting to have to go into except for, you know, I mean, you could go some route like that. We could even recover that kind of stuff, depending on how busted up it gets, but.
So you two should keep in the back of your mind as you're doing stuff out there, where is the next ideal location, troubleshooting wise, and pressure reducing wise? If you always suspected that the interlake circle
That's where it is, I can already tell you.
is the pressure problem that's making the old pipes
Yep.
let go of their old glued fittings,
Yeah, even glued.
or even the
apart.
saddles that were put
Yep.
on by a variety of people.
We've seen it all.
I'm expecting you two to say the next place we're putting one of the new PRV standards pits in is in that area.
One of the biggest problems, and this has always been a conversation on that, but one of the biggest problems we have with like the loop itself is that it's a two-way feed, right? It's an actual, we actually have a loop. It comes from West Bergamo, Middle Shore, you know, Little Shore, Middle Shore, and it comes from Edelweiss Drive, Big Loop, you know, so that whole zone is fed in two different
So
directions.
the loop around Interlake and Circle comes from Middle Shore, there's a connection from Big Loop, and there's also a connection from Blendon
Nope, Blendon's actually a dead end,
Dead
two
end.
dead ends.
and Pard Shore.
Also dead end.
Doesn't connect to the Interlake and Circle?
Interlake feeds Portage Shore, but
Yes.
that doesn't, that's a dead end to Portage Shore. It's not, it's being fed off the Interlake Circle up Portage Shore.
There's no loop off that.
No, so the two feed points are coming down Middle Shore to Interlaken is one valve that we use, and then the big loop.
Big loop.
Big loop to
So it
Edelweiss
might take
Drive.
two PRVs to solve that?
And then you would have to look at almost putting like a, almost like a primary, secondary. I don't probably, I guess, the only time I've ever seen this done before, we actually installed check valving, and it was actually for fire flows, it was a whole different kind of thing. But you could put like a check valve so the water can only go in a single direction. You could obviously bypass at any point in time. You could have, you know, you want to have the pit with a bypass. This is obviously a question Nick would have to delve into a little bit further, but that is the headache we have with that zone. And it doesn't really end with that zone. I mean, down at Muddy Beach, we're at 135 PSI. You know, I mean, that whole area is 125, 135 over there.
135.
Yeah. So, you know, down at the end of Little Shore is also an issue. It doesn't like, Interlake and Circle might, for whatever reason, maybe it's an older zone. I don't know. I don't know when things are being built and how and where, but that tends to be where we see the lion's share of the issues. But that whole area is overpressured. So coming up with a way, you know, you could almost say like from Edelweiss Drive, everything past that point, you know, from the Big Loop intersection to end of Mud towards where Muddy Beach is and down Big Loop and everything from there, and then from like the Little Shore, I mean, Edelweiss Drive Little Shore intersection, you could argue reducing pressure. So there's really no uphill other than Linden, and that you've gotten down, by the time you go up Linden and Port Shore and East Bergamo and all that stuff, you're at 135 PSI, so the highest points up there are up at, 100 PSI at the top of the hills, so.
So before we leave that, because that's a project that's way down the road, a
Yeah.
little bit down the road. We got other big projects already that have a higher
Sure.
priority right now. But just to clarify on Blinden, Blinden is fed off the Interlaken Circle, going uphill. It's not coming downhill.
No,
Are
actually,
there two pieces of pipe
the
on
Schweitz feeds the other end of Blinden.
as it goes up the hill and stops somewhere? Where's the break in the two lines?
As far as we know, the bleeder that we have on Blinden, that's if you were to go from the West Bergamo and take the right onto Blinden and up, there's a bleeder on the right-hand side across from, 25 Blinden or something, 22,
Yes.
23.
I looked for it yesterday.
It's there, it's kind of off down over the bank.
Okay.
If you find that,
That's the end of the line.
that's where we assume, we
Yeah.
think that's the end from the Schweitz side.
So the house at the very top of the hill is actually fed.
Kind of log cabiny looking
Yes.
one, I believe is fed from Interlake.
Interlaken Circle. Got
Because we
it.
would use that for air release.
Good, thank you.
All agree.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
It shows on the map as a single line, but it's not, so, I believe.
Oh, you said log cabin. The red log cabin or the new?
I'm talking, I don't
brand
even
new
know if it's an actual log cabin, kind of looks cabin-y.
He's
It's
talking
up on the right-hand side of the road. I think it's the highest, maybe, or very close to the highest point.
the
Yeah,
Manitoul house is an actual log cabin. Then there's one going up, one higher before it starts to go downhill again, and that's John Rochas III.
Okay.
So those two houses are on the Interlaken feed. And then downhill from there, those houses are being fed by the line that comes out of Schweiss.
Yep.
Okay.
Now that valve you found is, I think, actually
The one out in the woods?
in the woods, but I bet you that's part of the road.
So,
The road is 40 feet wide from the center line, and the road is pretty narrow there.
you're talking about Schweitz?
Twice.
Okay.
So it looks like it's on that lot, but I think the road actually goes
Huh.
to where that valve is.
Yeah, I mean, we're making some assumptions on what the heck goes on over there, but I mean, I think we've come up with, they jumped off the road as soon as they could. You get the
When they
two
hit
curb
rock.
valves at the top, they hit ledge, they went into the banking shoulder in order to get more berry, and you can kind of just see where it got cut to get to that valve. And then it continues up towards Blinden.
So the
and
valve
Mist.
may be in the
It's hopefully in somebody's right away, but.
right of way, but the line that feeds to it could cut right into that lot.
Very likely. You'd have to look at it. I mean, because it's like, from where you look at the banking cut, that might be upwards of 100 feet or more onto Schweitz, and then it's like a, 30-degree angle from there, traveling back towards West Bergamo. So, I mean, you're talking, you're eating up, you're 80, 90 feet kind of off the road at some points until you get to the valve.
Now, when you looked at documentation to know where that valve was,
Yes.
did you look at the hard copy, or did you look at the online
We
drawings?
used the book, I think, just because it was he was down at the, old
So I
habits
was
die
guessing,
hard
I
too.
even said to Jennifer yesterday, I bet you they're still using the books even though they can,
I'm sure.
because it's easier to look at the book than seeing it on your phone anyway.
It certainly can be, but I think it just offers that. We do it from the office a lot. Like if I'm not there on site, it gives me an opportunity to see what they're seeing kind of in a different version. It's nice to have both. But yeah, I mean the big 8x11 copy of it is a little bit easier to,
I started the
work off.
sheet protection on that book
Yeah.
yesterday.
Good.
It's gonna take a while.
It is, yes. There's a lot of drawings in there, and we need a lot more actually. But,
Yes, I
um,
noticed that.
So yeah, that's, but that was actually very useful, because I actually figured that was an uphill valve where it was, I think, I was kind of busting these guys on digging. I'm like, that's not gonna be what we're looking at, it was what we were looking for. So,
And the intersection.
yeah, I was looking for a valve up kind of past the two, and I'm not sure that there's not one. I have a vague memory of like 20 years ago of a valve that goes up above where those two curbs are, kind of like at the end of the Class 6. I believe we have a shutdown up there, but it's not documented, and we weren't finding.
So we're
it
at the
other
point
day.
we're relying on the memory of old men too. not
Yeah, I
us.
guess so. So it's begun.
Yeah.
But it's, I think we have, but that's, again, it's something we're gonna have to chase down in the spring and see if we have isolation up there. And again, Now that we got the good isolation up at the top, you're really only adding 2 houses to the shutdown. I mean, that was why we were getting in the pit, was to shut it off, not even to look for a meter or anything. That was where we were gonna shut it down if we had to do a shutdown, because we couldn't find the one that we were looking for out in that bank. So, yeah, I think, there's some question marks up there, and,
So before we move to Muddy Beach,
Yes,
one question to see if you know off the top of your head. The 4-inch line that was installed down Bristenstock to the dead end of the Class 6,
yep.
it was done part of the Rhineac project. Do you know why that was done?
Do I know why it was done?
Why they put a 4-inch line? Why that was part of the project when they were putting in a pressure zone on Edelboden and Biasca?
So,
They put a 4-inch line.
I know.
What were they solving?
There was a bleeder at the end of that line, so the only, I think maybe, you have a number of things, we were increasing the pressure on that zone, so to have all new pipe on a high pressure zone, because I think down in there you're probably in the 90 range, by the time you get down to that end of Bristenstock. But if I were to, get somebody else said, the guess I would take is to remove the bleeder.
Whew. It makes no sense to me. Of all the things, all the priorities in the village, we had an engineer that knew nothing about Idlewild.
That
and
ended
a
up
board that knew
replacing
nothing about the water system, I think.
all the piping. I don't know. I mean, if you cut short of that extra, I don't know how many feet is it from Bristenstock to that dead end, 500 feet?
Bristenstock to the dead end.
Maybe we're talking about 2 different locations.
Corner of Salins and Bristenstock, up that you talking? Up
That's
to-
where I'm thinking that you're talking about.
I'm talking about they ran the 4-inch pipe from the PRV at the top of the hill,
Yep.
all the way down the hill with no houses.
To get to the
To
end
get
of
to
Bristenstock.
Salins
So you're
and
talking
then-
that whole 1,000,
Yeah.
1,200, 1,500 feet, yeah.
Just every time I think of it, I think what a mistake.
Yeah, these state projects, you end up getting a little bit bigger. I don't know. I
Okay,
mean,
that's fine.
Yeah, I'm not entirely against it.
I
I think
thought-
when you increase the pressure on the zone,
If
I
you,
think
if you
getting.
spat out an answer that you remember from the time that made crystal clear,
That I
like
can't.
perfect
no,
sense to do
no,
this,
no,
then
I can't. I was
took
not
that
part of
chance.
that conversation, so I couldn't tell you. But I'm not.
thank you for the effort.
Yes. Yeah. You're welcome. All right.
Muddy
so,
Beach.
Muddy Beach. Yeah. What do you got?
So we made a vote to give you the summary in a vote that we took last week, and then back up from there if you want.
Sure.
We voted to have Nick contact the state and have a discussion about what's involved with shutting Muddy Beach off now and keeping it off.
Yep.
Right now, we're at the whim of whatever the communication system is doing, is our understanding.
Yep.
And we're in the winter mode, which means that typically it stays shut off. And there's a question of whether the SCADA information is real information. If the SCADA system is saying that nothing is being produced into the system from Muddy Beach, is that actually true?
It is.
Or is it, and when the question came up, I was going to say, Simply Water staff may know that because they're in the pump house. And they would know when the pumps were on and be able to compare that against the SCADA system saying they're not on.
So as of this moment right now, it is a choice I'm making to not kick that back on because we keep running well too dry every time it gets stuck.
Back
And
up.
it's-
So you have it shut off?
At this moment, over the last couple weeks, I had alarms out of the system for Muddy Beach 2, and I guess you could say, not been in a hurry to get it going
Good.
again.
Very good.
I'm gonna work within whatever we gotta do to produce out of it to keep it active, but we're not in a hurry to get it going, I guess, so.
So we want Nick to tell us that the state's okay with us shutting it off with the plan of leaving it off permanently, and what do we have to do
Yeah,
to decommission it?
I've been keeping an eye on comms and they're still bad over there, so I'm just pulling it open
Yeah.
right now to take a look.
Well,
I don't have any interest in spending a dime on chasing this 10-year-old communications problem.
Yeah, it's been a never-ending battle with it, so just out of curiosity.
My understanding is the SCADA guys don't believe cutting trees is gonna solve the problem.
That is because they believe it's a ground travel radio.
Yeah.
And that's, again, I'm not gonna, you get me in the weeds if I try to tell you what the hell that means, but, it's not an air travel, so the
It doesn't,
we've
it's not
covered-
point to point. It's not even clear to me they even use the top of the mountain as the intermediate link. It goes right over the top of the hill to
I
DPW
think DPW is the hub.
antenna with the wand straight up.
Yeah.
And you had me thinking about why is it seems like the seasons are in the wrong phase.
They are.
And my conclusion is it's the pond and the ground hugging radio wave.
Well,
Is the pond changes from summer to winter,
Yeah.
and it doesn't like bouncing off the ice.
Huh.
Otherwise, it's not the trees, because the trees would get denser with summertime moisture in them than the wintertime, and more leaves on the trees. So, that's a theory.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I just went back about 3 days and we had full drop off on comms over there. So it can just be, we're having issues with the pH had dipped because we weren't getting production out of DPW. I mean, that was just getting stuck on. I mean, it was like Muddy Beach was the only place we were getting water from. And we would only see that in between checks, because that's,
Yeah.
not to get off subject here,
Readings.
but we're not getting called out by the alarm dialer, and I didn't realize that until we had that issue the other day.
We need a meeting with
Tom?
Tom
Yeah.
for a number of things, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, it's the eyeball trick that's given it to us, and it might have run literally the only time that the DPW is running is to fill, you know, the use off Jungfrau tank, which is like 3,000 to 5,000 gallons a day on a bad day. So we get just completely stuck on Muddy Beach, which is not what we want. I would, obviously, for a number of reasons, the primary being the fact that we know we don't love the quality of the water out of it right now.
Right.
So, I believe that obviously as we draw it down, we're probably worsening the issue, not making it better, right? I think as well as a more full state, it's probably a little bit better water quality than when we've got it completely drawn down. And it's essentially just running perpetually drawn down, because if it gets stuck in motion, if it gets stuck as the primary feed and it does 85, 90, 95,000 gallons, it's gonna run it dry and it's going to get the water quality down. So, yeah, ever since we had the last episode with that, with the Kong getting stuck on and, you know, doing what it did, we just didn't, we have not returned it to service since then.
So Muddy Beach was not producing during the vacation weeks of Christmas and New Year's. And for the month of December, ending the 31st, we did over 2 million gallons.
I mean, wow, yeah.
In each of the days coming into New Year's was over 100,000 gallons a
So the
day,
peak we were at,
all out of DPW1.
yep,
Yeah.
and the average was 130 something thousand gallons a day over the course of the vacation week. So,
So DPW proved that it can,
oh yeah, no, it can do it.
it
can
can
do
do
it.
everything, yeah.
Yeah.
It has no issue with that.
So we had a lengthy discussion about the idea of putting in a second gravel packed municipal well into the well field.
Yeah,
And Nick had a number of comments to make on that. The most significant one is that he discussed it with the DuBois and King hydrogeologist, who didn't see the value in the second well as opposed to the value of having a backup jacuzzi pump, which we already have.
yes, we do have one. So do we,
It's
do
in
we
the
use
storage
that? We
room,
do
and
have one. Yes, we do have one.
And I want to have Water and Nancy another picnic to that storage room where the pump is, to see how that's all set up.
I think,
Yeah.
which storage room are we talking about?
It's up at the DPW too. This salt shed. Well, it's
This
in,
jacuzzi
Yeah,
pump?
we shouldn't get into detail.
Okay,
yeah, okay.
I think
So,
when there was water
that
committee, we
aside,
saw that. Okay.
so the interesting thing that came out of it was, he was suggesting that we contact DLMR and have them do a camera inspection of the well,
Okay.
the current one. Because the casing on the outside of that pipe,
DLMR who originally installed it?
Yes.
Yeah.
and they've been doing wells since
yeah.
1940s.
Huh.
DL was actually the president of the AWWA for many years.
Gotcha.
They, so what they're saying is, they think the life expectancy of that metal, the odds of that thing collapsing are way too high to justify putting the second straw in, was the term that he was using.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what
Now, when I watched them do this, that outside casing was actually part of the drilling. It wasn't drilling. They used that. They had this device that was the same kind of pipe that had a trap door in the bottom and an entrance, and they would fill the hole that they dug to get it going with water, and they would slam that thing down with a pile driver.
Yeah, I
and
see.
the trap door would open up, and it would be mud that went into it, and then they would hoist that thing up and dump it on the ground and haul it away, and then they would pile drive that outside casing down. And I swear
Yeah, it's probably a half-inch thick.
oh, I think it was
More.
even more,
Yeah.
because it was part of the tooling.
I've
of
never
it.
seen it done, but I've heard that method. And of course, you guys are only 65 feet deep or less over there, so it's not a crazy.
I think they went down. They hit water at 57 feet, and they stopped at 75.
Okay. we have, the pump is hung on 3 sticks plus a chunk, so I mean, you get 3 20-foot sticks and then some.
I don't think they
nominal
put the
amount.
pump at the bottom of the well.
No, they would have
no?
kept it up a bit.
Right.
While I don't want to challenge your thinking, because I couldn't tell you the quality of the steel or anything else.
So we know by having, if they went in and looked at it,
That'd
then
give
we're
you a
not
good
guessing.
idea, wouldn't it?
Yes. So that's the kind of direction we're heading in, is that,
I will tell you guys this, that it was almost 7 years ago to the day that pump failed on me the last time. Popped up in my fun pictures and my moments in Google Photos. We got Muddy Beach active. I reached out to the original well installer, if that was DLMR, which I have no, they're not close to us. I can't remember where they're at.
they
but
moved to, they were in South
Maine?
Boston in very valuable real
Boston?
estate.
Okay.
They must have sold that for unbelievable money.
So
And they moved to like the Lowell area.
I guess I'll keep this, I'll bridge this, that every single well contractor I work with and I reached out to was not able to get over to us to help us with that pump exchange. I mean,
Gotcha.
Hartley, I work with a ton in the area and I have nothing but good things to say about them, but, you know, they were tied up, it was holiday seasons, they're not emergency like we are, you know, I mean, and the oddities of that well, it's a 3-inch steel, it's a, as you know, a different type of,
Pitless adapter.
pitless than standard, so not every well rig can do it. You know, your small guys that from the area aren't necessarily equipped to pull that, so you're really hamstrung by 1, 2, 3 contractors that within a large area that can come and be of use on that. 7 days we were without water from that, and Muddy Beach kept up with it for, well, I lost water the day I got the pump changed, so we ran out of water for about a 2-hour gap. I mean, it was like just sweating bullets on, you know, on the day that it happened, watching that tank go an inch at a time as Muddy
Yeah.
Beach is pumping 60,000 or 50,000, whatever it was capable of getting out of the ground. Might have been even a little less than that, just losing ground. And we ended up with a undersized well rig and your DPW crew with their backhoe smacking it up to try to get, it's like, well, at this point, you know, if something breaks, it is what it is. This is our only option. I'm going to run out of water. Got it out of the ground, got the pump exchange, got it put in. Pump was sitting in our garage that entire time. It's having the pump available to us while is good. You're still gonna 1 week. If it happens like it did, we were using 140,000 gallons a day right then. So it was just terrible timing. If it happened when we were using 65,000 gallons of water a day,
Yeah.
we would have been fine. We would have made it. Plus, we would have had more people available to come and do a well job in the middle of winter. A lot of those guys, they shut their rigs down. They don't even
Yeah,
do it.
right.
So we're at the mercy of that. So yes, having the pump, while valuable, is not going to get it replaced. It's not something I can through will get done. I need a piece of equipment. It's not a cheap piece of equipment to do that. So it's not something we can get or source, or it's something we need to rely on another contractor. And I just think that while it was a perfect storm, and more than likely it's not going to be the equation the next time, that maybe somebody get there within 24 to 48 hours, we run the risk of that not being the case. And so while that doesn't mean you spend $500,000 on another well source, I think now this whole conversation we're having is with Muddy Beach capable of producing water. If we're having the conversation of kind of both things of decommissioning Muddy Beach and only having DPW, a single source with a pump, we would have lost water 5 days before I did. And I mean, I was borrowing, and stealing, trying to find somebody that would come and do this, and I couldn't guilt somebody into it. So, called in every personal favor I had, and I still couldn't get it done,
So an expensive piece of equipment would have made it easier to
A
do.
drill, I mean, you needed a rig that was capable of lifting that and dealing with that well pipe, which is not your common, we ended up with a standard 20-foot boom rig over there, and like I said, we had the road crew also chaining onto it and ramming up with the backhoe
So
to
was
try
the
to.
size of a crane was the issue?
Yeah, you just need a more, the guys that pull standard residential well pumps with their cranes aren't, or with their, rigs aren't gonna be the ones that can do this. It has to be Hartley, Tasker, Mar, somebody, Skillings. I mean, I reached out to everybody within a 50-mile radius, and it just couldn't get somebody over here.
So this should be part of a conversation we have with Nick then too.
It failed on like Christmas, and we lost water on New Year's Eve. I mean, it was like literally the worst possible time to have something like that
And then
happen.
it's a matter of whether we invest in duplication or more storage.
Sure.
If it was in storage, you wouldn't be sweating it.
If you had, I mean, you just have to start going over. If we're using 150,000 gallons of water a day, even if you got 300,000, that's only 2 days, right? I mean, and that's a tremendous amount of water to put. I don't know what that new tank is, 120 or whatnot. So, I mean, you'd be almost tripling the size of the storage.
And when we looked at towers, water towers, which that thing is, it's not a tank
Yep.
by the industry terms. We pressed the guy. We didn't decide to do it in let's see, it was 2004, I think. We were looking at the storage issue. We had the tower company, and one of the things he revealed to us, because this guy was honest, is that in the wintertime,
Freezes.
a huge guillotine-shaped piece of ice forms inside those towers because there's nothing
Yeah.
insulating it. That goes up and down
Yeah.
with the rise and fall of it. And because it's a guillotine shape because of the sun warming one side of the tower, then it doesn't freeze that way. So you get this odd piece of ice, an iceberg going up inside. So you don't have the storage
No, you
because
definitely.
you have this massive thing in there
Yep.
that you get back in the spring when it finally
Yeah,
melts.
no, that's definitely true. Whether it be all around the walls or you get floating ice.
So
Or,
that was another unbelievable thing I watched happen is they decided to put a tower in after
yeah, I mean, we've
20
got.
years ago we decided no way we're putting a tower
I mean,
in.
there's options for mixing those types of tanks, but I mean, it's not a giant concern for us because it's not usually something that we run up against.
Circulators and heaters. I told that
Circulators are
to
the
one,
best option for a tank like yours to keep it from freezing. But then
now
you
there's a
get
bill for power.
expense. Right. I mean, it just all kind of keeps going.
Underground would have stayed 55 degrees.
Yeah.
People's water heaters wouldn't have to take the water coming into their houses at 34 degrees and bring it up to shower temperature.
So yeah, and you are those are all valid points.
Uh-huh.
So
Let's start all over.
yeah, so I think
No.
it's I mean it's been an increase, better, but it's like I mean we have other considering factors that it's like that's why the redundant well over there. I mean that one's held up since what 94 or whatever 96 90 whenever that well was put in.
DPW?
Yeah.
95, yeah.
95. So I think getting that conversation going, and because I do understand how expensive that sourcing of another well is, even in the same place that we already have one and we've done all the permitting, you got to do the same damn thing, and I get that. But it's a redundant, if you were to completely eliminate Muddy Beach, which already isn't a viable redundant source, but it is something. It gives us 60,000 or so gallons per day in crisis. If we got rid of that altogether, we're at the mercy of an exchange. And technically, I mean, you would, at that point, putting it back online, you want to do a boil order system wide. If you lose a pump and you put a pump on without testing, now you got to put a whole boil order on, go through all that stuff, which again, these are, in the grand scheme of things, it's a small potato. But now that means I think we can rely on a failure on that pump every 7 to 10 years. That's about what the history's shown, which we're at, is another thing worth mentioning.
Wow.
We're at that time frame is where the pump very well may fail. So, if that happens, if you don't have something to go to, that's going to be the situation every single time you change that pump out, is you're going to go through a system-wide boil order. Because you can't, unless somehow you can produce water for about, if it happens timing right, where you can change it, chlorinate it, flush it on the next day, sample it 24 hours after that. So you're talking, if you lost a pump on a Monday, it got changed on a Monday, earliest possible results would come back on a Thursday. So you're talking 3 days of that pump being offline. So there's just operational consideration, which cost-wise, that's a peanut compared to sourcing a well, but it's the optics of it. It's the whole overall situation. It's the risk of it.
The stress at the time.
The stress at the
Right.
time that you're hoping you're going to get it, and then, well, shit, we didn't. Now we got to go and boil order. And I'm also looking at my storage, saying, boy, I got 100,000 left. I hope that guy shows up tomorrow morning the way he's supposed to.
Or we start changing the pump out before it fails.
And while that is a good idea, and I think that as we get to that 7-year mark, which again was where we're at, if it holds on, I expect it will. But if we get to that. That pump and the exchange of, I actually don't know what that cost you guys, but I would guess somewhere around 15,000 between the pump and the rig.
I think the first time we bought it was 9,000,
The pump was 9,000.
but the one that's in there now might have cost what you're
More.
saying, yeah.
But then you got the cost of the rig. So now you're doing and the time of flushing and testing and all that stuff. So whatever. Let's say if that's what it is, it's a $10,000, $12,000 pump. and 10,000 in labor, you know, between the rig and everything. So now you got a $20,000+ exchange every time. Ideally, you're not doing that preemptively. Ideally, you're getting 10, 12 years out of it, not because even, let's be honest, changing a pump out doesn't mean you're going to get the exact 7 years, right? You could have one that gets
Right.
you, I don't know, I hope not to see it, but you could get two or you could get, you never know. You know, some environmental condition goes wrong, lightning, I mean, it's all pretty well protected out there at this point, but just something bad out of the box, bad, whatever the scenario is. I mean,
Yeah.
imagine that. We don't get to test these pumps. What if I put it in and it doesn't work? You know, it's
Right.
like.
Can you refurbish your pump? The one you pull, can those be refurbished, put in storage for use for the next
I
time?
think that would probably not be a cost-effective thing.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you whether it's possible or not. It's not something we would do. It is. It is. While like I said, I couldn't tell you it's impossible, but I don't think it would be cost-effective.
Okay, but if we were gonna do a preemptive change out, we have an existing pump, that would still need to be fully tested or looked at, inspected, whatever,
So you're
before you
saying
put
if
it
you
in.
preemptively did it, could you hold on to the old one as an emergency backup? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but have it refurbished, so you know you got a pretty,
Have them bench tested and.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's going to give you any certificate of anything with it, just like
Correct.
everything else. They're not going to actually assume any liability. And they'll say, yeah, the pump's working and seems to be okay and it's amping out properly and all that's good. But and you go, oh, okay, well, how long will it last for? And you go, I don't know, a day, 2 days, 10
Yeah,
years, 10,
right.
10 years? I don't know. Put it in the ground. You guys let us know.
all right, but
No.
this-
So there are many municipal systems in the state that are sole source that run up against this algorithm because they don't have a second pump, second well fill. And
It's become a lot more of a rarity, though. That's been the sourcing, especially on, you know, I have other precincts that like we get surface water, which has become like everybody hates it, right? Because it's a sole source and it's you know, susceptible to the environmental conditions, right? They're pushing real hard on getting wells on that, but it actually is very uncommon, except for very small systems, like, you know, under 25, under 50 home systems. Yeah, you definitely have a lot of those that have single pumps. It's not a, they don't concern themselves the same way from the state perspective on those systems as they do like a large supplier like you guys are. So large suppliers like you guys, I bet there are very, very few, especially if it's a well system, not a surface water. Yes, you still have quite a few sole source. They only do surface water. In that context, if they have to pump the water or anything else, I guarantee there's redundant spares to those things. But the source of water still remains as one. But when it's a well, I honestly don't know if the state would let you abandon an active well field and go down to a single source. They very well may say, no, you can't do that. You got to maintain your redundant source.
that's one of our things Nick is looking at.
Yes.
Yeah, because to not have one and be up against a $500,000, I don't know if I'm exaggerating grossly the cost of a well field, but to have some very large costs that you're facing, they might not be able to make you do that right off the bat, but to go from having redundancy to not, whether it's effective redundancy or not, I don't know that they would allow it. So, I don't know, those are things that we gotta get the answers to, but I would say that as an operator, and acknowledging the supreme cost of that, but it would still be like, well, I would promise you, we will, if we ever went down to one well and relied on, you know, pump exchanges, I could virtually guarantee we will go without water. So that's, the question is it worth saving a tremendous amount of money to have infrequent small periods that you would expect to go without water? Or is it like, no, we want to, you know, so even if it is an option to us, is it something that we want to almost knowingly go down that path? So,
the Grecian well fill was never in operation when you,
no, I never saw that one.
so it's a wetlands and it's a big piece of land and it's easily attachable. It was part of the water system. We had the regular drilled wells in there and they were sand suckers. They filled the Jungfrau tank with sand over the years, and it took 3 guys 3 days shoveling out the Jungfrau tank by
Nice.
hand. But it'd be interesting to, when we have this conversation with Nick about the amount of time it takes to get the DPW well pumps switched out,
Yeah.
as to whether that is a target for a new type of well system as a backup.
Hmm.
What, I don't know whether that's in a uranium vein also.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I don't know.
it never tested for one way back when.
Right, that wasn't a consideration probably when I was online.
So we used to only have Muddy Beach and Gretchen as the
Before
two
the
sources.
before 95, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, again, back in, I mean, late 90s, early 2000s, whatever, I mean, you guys were using 35,000 gallons of water a day. I mean,
With the bleeders.
yeah, with
Yeah.
bleeders. I mean, it was a different ball of wax, you know. I mean, I think our absolute baseline at this point is 60,000. It would probably be.
That was when America was great.
Yeah, yeah, right. Back, 25 years ago. So, yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know anything about that. I've seen I know where the field was. I know, through just looking at the drawings and stuff, but I don't know what it would be for.
There were
us.
shallow wells, and one time the problem was we had crustacean-like surface creatures,
Ew.
which were little water bugs.
Yeah, I know. I
microscopic.
think I probably know which ones you're talking about. We've seen them in other locations.
So I'm not talking
like
about that type of well if
No, you'd have to go a little deeper, I think. Because we still have surface well. I mean, like shallow wells in a few of our systems. And yeah, of course. I mean, you open Europe to you get away from the
Yeah.
radionuclide stuff, but you get into bacteria and
Yeah.
drought and other
Yeah.
other considerations that become a problem. So
So let's have that conversation
Yeah,
with Nick.
I agree.
I think we covered that pretty well.
Yep.
Okay, but for my clarification, are we looking, we don't know what the right answer is just yet going forward, but if I understood this conversation correctly, there's a couple of different options. One, a second straw somewhere, or, as we discussed initially, refurbishing the Muddy Beach Station with uranium mitigation equipment. And then a third option is more storage.
And understanding with the Muddy Beach that is still a limited source. You can't produce
Right.
water
From it.
well, even if we manually managed it and we just shut off the SCADA and we just did it by hand, which is fine, right? I mean, that is actually very doable over there with the VFDs and stuff. That's actually not that big of a crisis or anything. But you can only pull about 40 gallons per minute continuously out of the ground there, 35 to 40 gallons per minute. So anything more than that, which you guys certainly at times use far more than that, and you're going to drain the well field down and to the point that things just run dry. So it's a limited source. If you said you use 65 gallons per minute, where we can do about 2/3 of the, and that's at like average usage is you're about 65 gallons a minute. At peak demand, you're probably pushing 90, 100 gallons per minute. I mean, talking peak sustained demand. This Christmas week you were using closer to 100 gallons per
Okay,
minute,
so
125 gallons.
if I hear you correctly, let's say there was no uranium problem. Okay,
Yeah.
that's our second well field. You're saying it's
a backup.
Right, it's a backup, but you're saying it's inadequate if we had a major failure of a DPW1 and we're out of water for a week to get a new pump put in, the Muddy Beach just couldn't handle it.
Not for the week you'd be out of water after a week.
Okay.
But better than having nothing,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so it's like if but then, obviously we get into the cost of that uranium treatment long term and what that's gonna cost,
Right,
so.
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
you got it.
Obviously,
Yeah, you gotta do, something's gotta go one way or the other, but
Yeah.
we don't have the right answer yet, but we'll come
We
to
do
it.
not.
Okay.
Right.
I do not. So I think it's a conversation with him and looking at, I think getting a more realistic cost of what it actually would be to drill a well is a big part of this equation. It's only 65 feet deep. I think the sourcing of it and just the state and what that takes is a big part of the cost of that. But the actual mechanics of it, I don't think are going to be the driving factor. So
So we're gonna leave Muddy Beach off until we hear back from Nick and the state, and then pick up the conversation from there.
yeah, if at any point you
So that
guys.
should be in the minutes, there's the Muddy Beach who will be, the water
the-
operators keeping it off.
At the point I rely on the communications, if you guys want me to, I can, if I knew I was only getting 10 to 15% of the water out of that, I would be okay leaving it active, knowing that it could produce 95% of our water. I don't want to leave it active.
Right.
I don't think we want,
Avoid it as long as we can.
Yes.
yes,
Roger.
we don't
That's
want
kinda what
any
I'm- this is what I'm
uranium
thinking
entering
too.
the system.
I'm of the same mindset
Right.
that if I don't need it, I'm not going to use it. So.
Right.
Like when we were having the issue with DPW the other day, young fella, the power loss or whatever, obviously if push came to shove, Muddy Beach was gonna go online,
So you know that the Tuesday before that failure with a tree falling down on Aspen that took out Rhineac and We had voted to have Nick start putting a generator.
Perfect.
Hook up at Jungfrau.
What are the odds, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
A few days later, we needed it.
Yeah.
I got pictures of what the snow looked like coming out the back door after the water was coming out.
Yeah, it was
I don't think, it didn't freeze up inside that.
Nope.
It was too fast.
Yeah.
They had the
Yeah.
power on pretty fast.
Yeah, no, that one. I mean, and so obviously I got the call from the office, and I got on and I saw that it probably had happened. I don't know, like 4 or very early morning hours. I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but you know, and again, not to beat that dead horse, but yeah, that's, you know, ideally I get a comm alarm that tells me I got a power failure at 11 p.m. from Jungfrau. Now I know that this is something I'm tracking. I don't, for fun, get on your log me in 6 times a day, believe it or not. So I only go when I have to. So I mean, if it's even if it's just an email to get some notification that, hey, there's an issue, keep half an eye on it. You know, I'm sure we could have alleviated some of. You know, we just go shut the pump off and boom, done. You know, there's no water coming out of Jungfrau. Keep an eye on Rhineack. Make sure it doesn't get too low. If it does, turn on Muddy Beach. Again, nobody knows anything ever even happened over there.
Right.
So just you know, that communication through alarms is a pretty paramount thing for us.
It used to be pretty straightforward on how to shut the DPW well off without even going in. There used to be a button right outside. I don't know about the new
It
setup.
technically is still just a button, but
Yeah.
I would say we actually had a failure on that. How long ago? A month, 2 months ago?
Yeah, a couple months ago, it had faulted out there.
So I don't know if that was something with the pump, but it does, I guess it bridges slightly into, we were able to reset it, you know, clear the VFD and everything went right back to normal. I don't think we've
Yeah.
had another issue with it. But I do think we're probably getting close to that quote unquote borrowed time on that wall pump out there, so.
Okay.
So we discussed putting a generator in at DPW also.
Which I think is,
We didn't discuss what I want to bring up at some point before Nick gets too far into that. We didn't vote to have them start having Lee Carroll start designing that. But we should discuss whether it's just the well system or the entire facility, garage and office, that's part of a battery backup system. And then Rhineack was supposed to have a generator hookup as part of the contract, and I don't believe that happened on the outside of the building.
I off the top of my head couldn't answer that to you, but I do know that that was
I'm pretty
part-
sure that didn't happen.
I remember a conversation about that transfer switch too. And I don't know where that landed, if they ended up axing it off the project or if it got put in. I mean, you know, it's just a big gray box. So
If
it's
I
if
remember
you went
it-
and looked and you didn't see it, it's probably not there. So,
Right.
just a
The
generator.
contractor got it separated out of his responsibility, and it was assigned to one commissioner to follow through and get somebody else to do it, and then it went into the vapor, and
I don't have.
I don't think there's any evidence of.
I'll make sure we take a look when we're up there next. I feel like, boy, I thought that the switch got put in up there, but I don't know. So we'll take a look at that. Obviously, while Jungfrau is important, Rhineack's important, it's not that important. It's, in the grand scheme of things, DPW and Jungfrau are far more important.
In having power there just means that the pressurized system for Edelboden and Edelboden, Biasca
Yeah.
and Bristenstock, they're just gonna run off the gravity of the tank
Just like they
for a
used
while.
to.
Right.
Like, I mean, now granted, all those houses had pumps,
Pumps
and it was a whole
inside, yeah.
different thing.
Which
but
we don't know if they ever took them out.
no, I don't think they did. So they might still be waiting there just to be able to plug it in. But more than likely, if Rhineack doesn't have power, they won't have power. So maybe a handful of houses would have generators. But if anything, the pressure's increased 3 to 4 psi. It would be surface water. It would be water that would be traveling through the pipes. It wouldn't be dead. You know, you'd have water to rinse a dish, flush a toilet, whatever. You know, so is it ideal? No, but in the grand scheme of things, DPW then. Honestly, Jungfrau, as it sounds like you're looking at, is probably one because it loses power more often and for longer than DPW does. DPW is at the end of the day, you can't do anything out of Jungfrau if you're not getting it from DPW. So they're both pretty critical. If you do one, and you really ought to do both. But if you had to pick one or the other first, Jungfrau, then DPW.
That's what we did.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd like to switch gears and talk about another topic, but just very briefly, because you may not have the answers, but
Yep.
maybe you do. Lead line.
Yep.
So back in October, I'm paraphrasing, but you basically said this whole lead line service line It was a labyrinthian program
Sure.
through the NHDES, which is
Sounds
being
like something I
mandated
would
by
say.
EPA. I don't know if you were the labyrinthian, but
You said he experienced.
you might have said morass or you know,
Yeah.
something like that. Anyway,
Very close too.
so why I'm bringing that up is that there was an email back on December 30th sent from Lisa to our office, but I'll get to that in a moment.
Okay.
First, I'm looking at the New Hampshire DES, their FAQ on this whole program.
Yep.
And I've read through all their literature multiple times. Yes, it's labyrinthian, and I have not found my way out of the maze yet.
Yeah.
Okay? But here's one thing that's interesting. It said, when will the new sampling schedule be in effect? It says the new sampling plan will be effective as of January 2025. Hey, here we are.
Here we are.
Then it says all community water systems with service lines identified as lead, GR, unknown, we know we're unknown, or unknown in their inventory, will be required to do full sampling in 2025.
Yep.
How in heck is this supposed to happen?
We haven't received anything yet, but what's gonna happen is the same thing as our typical sampling schedule. You get a lead and copper.
Right.
They're going to increase the size of it, and they're going to increase the frequency of it.
I get
So,
it.
I can't tell you exactly what your schedule looks like yet. I don't know that it's come out, but more than likely, it's probably gonna be yearly, and if you're doing 10 sites, you're gonna have to do 20 sites or something. And that's gonna probably continue until, you know, you spend
Okay, so
$3
does
million
that
to prove
allude
you
to
have no lead.
the email from your office on December 30th?
Okay.
Said, good afternoon, please note that the lead and copper sampling sites will remain the same
Okay,
as
good.
they are all unknown. And you list
Oh,
11 addresses out of 485 water customers we have on the system.
Sample set.
So are these 11 the ones that need to be sampled in 2025?
Without looking at it directly, more than likely, yes.
Okay, then again, I thought this was a totally voluntary program on the homeowner itself, since that's their lines.
Okay, so these are two different things. So
Yep.
the state has always maintained a lead and copper rule, which has gotten more and more
Right.
robust, we'll call it,
Yeah.
over the years, which requires you guys, as long as your lead and copper comes back clean, you know, so under detector or below limits, once every 3 years you'll go through that cycle. And again, I want to say you guys do 10 sites. Those 10 sites have probably been lead and copper sites for the last 50 years. I have no idea. Some have been added to it over the years, but essentially it's been a maintained list, and you have two separate lists, and alternated every 3 years. If you were ever to go over the limits on your lead and copper, it would increase your sampling schedule. I think you'd have to do it yearly. If you went over again, you'd have to do it quarterly. Okay, I don't think, certainly in recent history, gone over on your lead and copper numbers. So business as usual. 10 sites every 3 years they get submitted. With the new lead and copper rule, they're now requiring any houses that have been documented to be lead free. They don't want those on your lead and copper
Okay,
sampling sites,
gotcha.
right? Because if you said, hey, we've proved there's no lead in this house, post 1990, the service line has no lead, then obviously that's gonna come back with no lead. And the sample results, they want the homes that are being tested to be high-risk homes. So even in the old lead and copper rule, ideally they wanted to have, you pick houses that were pre-1987, known to have copper, known to be potentially lead solder. It's just impossible, right? I'm
Yeah.
gonna be frank. This is a very difficult program to run, because you could need access into people's homes, which it's one thing to, you know, sample from where we sample, but it's a whole other ball of wax, as I was reported as. This is when I got called, oh no, that was a bacteria thing.
Okay,
Anyway.
so the first home on your list says 4 Adelboden Way.
Okay.
Tier 4, I don't understand what the Tier 4 is, but maybe that's one of those more higher risk
Sure.
type homes. Okay, service line material unknown. Well, every
Everyone's
freaking
unknown.
house in
Right.
VDOE
We didn't
falls
report
under
any
the
known
unknown.
non-lead, yep.
Again, do you guys go knocking on the door of 4 Adelboden Way? Do we?
So this will be
does
handled
the-
by Granite State Analytical, which has always been done in conjunction with the office in some fashion, where I think you deliver bottles to the homeowner and then
Yeah,
rely on
I
them to
think
fill
you're
it and
right.
deliver it back. You also have the fact that the state is allowing every single one of your homeowners to request a lead and copper sample,
Yeah.
Which is already happening.
yeah, I'm sure it is. So they're probably telling you, "Hey, test all this other stuff too," but you know, no, sorry, it's just lead and copper.
Yeah.
This is very business as usual for their program. It's just accelerated. It's just more of a, they made it more of a pain in the butt. And the goal here is to get people to be motivated to process their lead and copper lines.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And you wouldn't have been through this. But this is a very standard thing that happens every couple of years. Granite State Analytical brings us the bottles. We contact the list, the 10 people, we bring bottles to their house, they fill it the next morning, and if they can bring it back to us, that's great. If not, we go pick it up.
You
Yep.
used to pick it up, right?
Yeah,
It's been,
I
I've
used
been
to pick 'em
involved sometimes, I've been uninvolved. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you do what you can to get the samples
Yeah.
done, add homes to the list, do whatever you gotta do. You know, you can't do it on place, but you can add preemptively. Like, if you guys wanted to add another 10 sites, you can do that. Everybody that's currently, anybody could do it. You could actually just put out a general, hey, anyone want to be added? If you had 50 sites, that makes this a lot easier, right?
Yeah.
Than when you have 10.
we actually
But-
have at least 40 sites
Okay.
that are listed through DES.
Okay.
So they pull a random
They usually do odds and
from one
evens.
side, then from the
Yep.
other side,
Yep.
and yeah,
Make things
and that
easier.
then picks 10 and say that's this year's list.
And like I had Bartlett, I was trying to do the other day, but we needed 10 sites, this, that, the other. And I actually just told them I needed all the sites because I couldn't get 10 sites because it's impossible. I mean, it's really hard sometimes to do it. So then they gave me the 20 sites. They gave me the full list. It was really nice of them. But this is just your standard. You're gonna have what's called the what is it called? The blanking on it. Your state DES worksheet that has all your sampling. You go on there, type in your EPA number, and see this information.
One stop or whatever?
Yeah, the one-stop
Yeah.
site.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still the master sampling schedule.
Great.
So this will all be listed on there. This is part of the regular lead and copper with the new lead and copper rule being injected
Yeah.
into it, changing some sampling sites and stuff.
Yeah.
And again, you guys have a zero report, so it's like if 5 of those sites had said we have no lead and copper, they would just require you to change those sites to places that are either unknown or known to have lead. So nothing really changed for you. It's just gonna be more often. That's it.
Okay, they also supplied us with the inventory on an Excel spreadsheet. Again, all the homes on our water system customers, there are several on there that are not our water systems customers, so I'm not worried about that. But we can't populate that until we get results. Does Granite State send us the results?
Yeah, and they have probably somewhere between a 3 and 6 month period. So just because the compliance period is January, it doesn't mean that your sampling quarter is January. So I guess what that means is,
We usually do them in August.
I was gonna say, more than likely it's gonna be a summer sample. I don't know your schedule off the top of my head, but it's usually in quarters, so January to March, whatever it is, April to June. So it is the compliance year as of January 1st, 2025. Their sampling might not be taking place for anywhere from, they could do it at the end of this quarter in 2 months, they might do it tomorrow, I don't know, or it could be in quarter 4 or quarter 3 that they have their sampling schedule. So that master sampling schedule will give you that information.
Okay, but again, you said, it's gonna be our responsibility to get the water bottles for testing to the homeowners.
Yeah, and we've offered before to help with that, but
Right.
it's usually just, it's just getting in contact with the homeowners, telling them they need to do the
Right,
sample.
okay, I got that. It's also our responsibility to populate that inventory Excel spreadsheet based with the results, or does someone else do that?
That I'm not 100% sure on.
Okay.
That might be something new.
And then my last open question here, okay, I'm not expecting full answers here, is
Yep.
that if the sampling rate is 11 per year, and they want this program to be wrapped up by 2036, there's no way we're gonna meet 485 homes in that time frame, unless you can if they know which homes were built after 1987, you can wipe them off the
Yeah,
list.
unfortunately, that doesn't. You don't get to eliminate homes based off good sampling. So, God forbid it was simple, but it was. So those same sites that you have will actually be a repetitive thing. They want this program wrapped up as in you've done the physical inspection of these lines by 2036. You could have perfect 0 zeros come back on your lead and copper. That house is still an unknown until you physically prove that it doesn't have lead. And now, from what I understand, it's changing from pictures of the internals of the house to show that it's a plastic line coming in. They're requiring that you dig every single curb valve and show that it's plastic there as well. So,
What?
One of the instructions they told us to give to homeowners was something they called the scratch test, where they want you to go down where the actual valve, where the water comes into the house, and scratch it. And they tell you, based on what you see on that scratch, you'll be able to tell if it's lead or not.
I just love how ridiculous this
Oh,
stuff is.
the
It
valve
is
volume
ridiculous.
itself, or?
On the pipe.
on the pipe, there's a little diagram there, they show you the valve, and then it'd be on the, the inlet side,
Sure.
just past the valve, if there's a metal pipe there,
Yeah.
scratch it
Huh.
with like a quarter or something.
This is gonna be it's gonna change, they're gonna adapt their rules. I mean, all you can do is try to follow them as best you can. This is gonna be different a year from now. They're probably, I think I've already heard there's gonna be litigation against this for it. This is probably gonna get, I mean, between you and I, it's probably gonna get abandoned because it's
Yeah,
Because
overreach.
it's a
Correct.
show.
So,
Here, I
There-
got a picture of the scratch test
they're
right
also
here.
creating a fund for it so that you can apply for, some of that nice state money to come out and spend $1 million digging up curb valves.
That's the first I've heard of that.
It's crazy. I'm under the impression, go along, get your sampling done the way the rule reads. You're gonna have to accept an additional, $1,000 in sampling a year to process these additional lead and coppers. I think don't try to meet the extent of the rule. Do what the
require
quote unquote
at the
damage
time.
control of not
Yeah.
meeting the rule,
Right.
because more than likely the rule is going to be different.
Wow.
2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now.
Yeah, well, that was the next point, is obviously it's the New Hampshire DES and their consulting groups that are the whip right now behind this. But ultimately, it's the federal, the EPA who's mandating all this, and based on current political circumstances, that may all change.
Right.
Well,
I
of
mean,
course, it's all gonna change.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to go on with these things, but I mean, it does get to a point that it's just so cumbersome. I think the concept is good. I always try to see the purpose behind what these guys are doing, and I understand it. I get that they don't want to have leaded water systems. You have something like Flint, Michigan happen, and now everybody's like, I know that's a long time ago at this point, but that is honestly that is the starting point of this conversation.
What was that,
so-
Flint, Michigan?
Yeah, so they try to not have that happen everywhere, right? Then they overthink it and they get to a point that they've got to now. So you're gonna end up finding some happy mediums here, I think, long term. But, we could go through you guys' new connection list of the last 25 years and document that every single one of those is lead-free. I mean, you have some avenues because it is at, I believe we can test it, we can, testify is not the right word, we can secure our signature in saying that this is, we're gonna stand behind that this was a lead-free line. I mean, we could probably do a fifth of your houses just like that.
Great Northern never used lead lines.
No one did. I mean, there's no lead
They're all
up in this
black
end of the
plastic
world.
and I
It
don't-
was all built in 1970s prior, or
Right, but-
1960 to 1970.
When I talked to the
built.
Arcadis Consulting Group, they didn't want to hear that. They said,
It does- right,
they
it
said
does-
you may be absolutely
it doesn't
correct,
matter.
and that's fine.
Yep.
But this has to be verified by
Exactly.
physical evidence. Okay?
Right.
And it sounds like we gotten to the point with all these different.
You're not going to feasibly get the physical evidence. It's just not
No,
going to happen.
it's not.
So
It's not.
you're going to have to just deal with the new testing requirements, which you're in the same boat as 95% of the other
Yeah,
customers in the state of New
exactly.
Hampshire. So now they've just effectively, they should have just said, we're changing a 3-year rule of lead and copper to a 1-year rule.
To a 1 year,
And done with it.
exactly.
And saved all the money of doing
And
all
that's
this stuff.
probably what will happen.
That's
That's
what
the
is
end of
happening.
it.
I mean, very few systems were able to go out and prove
There's
that they
no
don't
way.
have lead. It's a very difficult, cumbersome, and cost prohibitive thing to do. So.
And they did, on the sampling sites for the lead and coppers. I want to say 2017 or 16, DES went through and asked that all the water systems make sure that the oldest houses in their system were the ones that would get the
Tested.
tests. And the district complied with that at that point. We changed a half dozen
Yeah.
sampling sites around the district to get the older houses, and we have never failed our lead and coppers.
Right.
Right.
So that
So,
now we got a whole brand new inventory that just says unknown. What you're telling me is all those addresses should have been said free, lead
No.
free, lead free.
you can't guarantee that. And that's what they're trying to say, and that's why they're saying this is all gonna go out the window over the course of the next year and a half, and it's not anything to be concerned about.
Let me just tell you that the protocol in doing it was that you used a faucet that had been used in the last 24 hours that didn't have water sitting in it.
Right.
And that will pass the test. Then the one day that you use water from a downstairs bathroom that you don't use and you fill out that sample, it'll fail. From the lead in the solder
Right.
inside the house in the copper
It's
pipes.
been sitting around.
So that's why to say this house passed this test 7 times, well, that owner did the test right and used
Right.
water that had been moving through the house. But that doesn't guarantee that that house doesn't fail a test if they don't do the test
Right,
exactly.
any water
the way
with perfect pH, minus .01, that sits around for 3 days
Right.
in the, a water heater, I mean, some of the samples that come back to us are pretty wild. So, you can't ever rule out that the Home Depot faucets from, they've probably got lead in them still. I mean, that's the crazy part here, is that they're still allowing sale of things that are like plated.
Jeez.
But, the whole entire infrastructure water systems over the last 30, I mean, they went to anything, it used to be 2-inch minus, had to be lead free, and then probably 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, they went 2-inch plus needs to be lead free. So, I mean,
Right.
it's just, it's overthought, but it is what it is. And again, you're dealing with the same thing as everybody. So all you do is you meet the testing requirements, you do the reporting the way they ask you to, and you wait and see what happens.
Right.
It's the smallest cost that we can incur,
Right.
and
Right.
you're still documenting your system that you don't have lead, and you would react to it if you did. You know what I mean? So you're doing everything you can. You're trying to comply with this rule is going to be nearly impossible for a system like Idlewise. So you can't comply with the end point of the rule. You can't comply with having not done the lead survey, so now you just do the sampling
Right.
and upkeep. And you deal with that. I mean, and they might keep accelerating that. Maybe you got to do 2 rounds a year or something. It's going to be a pain in the butt, but it's going to be certainly far more attainable than getting a lead-free survey completed. So,
Okay. As far as reporting to our water customers, is this going to be an annual thing, like we just did?
you have to supply the lead and copper gets put into your CCRs every year.
Yep.
So that's already part of an annual
Okay,
report.
right.
And I believe the new lead and copper rule requires that whatever homes were used for the lead and copper sampling, so like say you were a sample site, you will also be given a direct copy of your results. So
That's always been there.
yeah, whoever is, certainly in the last like 10 years, I think they changed that. So whoever is a site gets mailed a copy, so they personally get a copy, plus the results are put in your CCR.
Okay, but so we don't have to do a blanket coverage of every water customer in the future? We've
No,
already
not
done that.
unless you have a lead hit.
Unless we have a lead hit, okay.
Yep. At which point you'd be in violation, you gotta put out a violation paperwork. But
Okay.
assuming things come back the way they always have. and
So
then
sort of like the
good,
uranium, if we get a hit again, goes above the limits, then we
You have
gotta
to put
do a
out the
blanket
violation, right.
notice
If
to
your
everybody on
uranium
the
stays
system.
below, you just report it in your CCR.
Okay. All right,
Okay?
that makes it a little clearer than mud, so I'm good.
Yeah, I get it, believe me, that's, we've had a lot of fun with this one.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything else pressing. Check real quick.
How are we at getting the cards for the latest hookups?
From this summer? We should have them.
How do we
Are
get
you
them?
missing a certain number of them, or all?
I don't know yet. This has
Okay.
been a pack that I don't know how long it's been.
Before I started, it's just been a random stack
And I
of
asked her if
cards
she's
in-
gotten any
in a
cards.
book.
And has she gotten cards since she started here in April?
Okay.
And we don't think we've gotten any.
I think Lisa would have been putting them into the card stock. So let me check in on that, because I don't know 100%. I know that some of the houses that haven't, or some of the lots we connect that don't have houses, we don't do cards for until there's a
Right,
house.
yeah.
So some of them are just gonna wait until
Right.
the bill, and we're not gonna do it now.
Gotcha.
We're gonna wait till spring
Okay.
and go out and
I
get
see.
cards on those.
Okay.
I would think we would want to have a card,
Before house?
even if there's not a house. If there's a
Curb.
curb stop there,
Yeah.
we should have a card.
Which is fine. The problem is it's the sometimes the poles are 300 feet away. It's just
Yeah,
not, it's not a
and the
super
measurements
usable
from the
card
house,
to
yeah.
anyone.
You're waiting
So-
for a foundation to try level
Yeah.
off of?
Yeah, so we have more usable, we can put information on where the driveway is, if they put a little
Yeah,
retaining
and
wall up.
that's-
Sure,
I've seen
yeah.
them.
Sure, I would definitely want to see them redone,
Yeah.
or updated.
I'd have to agree with her. is that we
But
need-
I would think
should
if
get
we-
some kind of
Okay,
card.
that's fine.
Have something that says
I mean,
there's
we
a,
definitely have ties to everything that we did, so I
Yeah.
mean, we can get you a tie list and then go into a.
Because you have to go find it when the foundation is there.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
So you
I
need
know.
something.
This-
Right, so
yeah.
if we have something, then,
Okay, so
you know,
let
it'll
me,
make it easier for you guys too.
Turn them off.
I know that we should be up to date on anything outside of this calendar year, because that's what we would typically do, is take like the year's connection list and just make sure that everything had been turned over. So I will verify that, if you know of any that, because that's, I think the easiest thing to do is just pull the connection list and see what we're missing. So, that's, yeah.
So these cards get added to a sheet or a copy on a sheet
They
that
get put in a
contains
black box.
additional information on it. Right? It has additional information. How does that additional information on the sheet get there?
Well,
We'll work with that.
yeah, a lot of what you see on that additional
So-
information is like an old and a new. I think this one will be just you put this on and then, I don't know what you guys have been adding on top of that.
I don't
They
know.
put
either.
the owner's
I've never-
name on some of them.
Oh,
also.
good. It's always, contact information would be fantastic on those things. If we
If it's
ever,
old, I can-
in an emergency, and need to email them or shoot them a phone call, that would
The first
be.
one I picked up, I said, that guy doesn't own that anymore.
Exactly. I mean,
Right.
some of them are from like the 90s still, so. But yeah, that's always a good thing to keep, is an up-to-date emergency list. But yeah, okay, that's,
Way better than others, you know?
Yeah.
Better
just
organized.
have, if you wanna shoot an email to Lisa, and that way we can make sure it gets, I mean, I'm taking the information with me, but if you wanna just make sure she gets all that, she's gonna tell you, well, I'm gonna have to badger you in about it, but I'll get you guys anything you're missing on that. And if we're missing, again, at this point, if there's a handful towards the end of the year that we did that don't have anything on them, I'm just gonna ask, I mean, I think we have at a minimum ties to courts and curbs and stuff like, well, or for the most part, we do that off like the pipe and depth of road and stuff like that. So we have that for our own information on the, so we know how deep it was and what type of pipe it was. Probably don't actually have a tie from like the pole. We just have a generic, hand drawn, like they're all hand drawn, just a snapshot for ourselves to kind of go back to and work off in the future. So I can certainly supply those and then get you cards as, we have, which I think we've probably already done two. I think there's only probably one or two that don't actually have a card.
All right,
So
I think you're right.
those ones were just, we put them in with nothing there, and it's just, like I said, it's just kind of tough to get much on that, but that's fine if you guys want to. Certainly, like I said, I know we have something on each of them, so I'll give you what we got, and if it's good enough, good. If it's not, we'll get you more. But you will get a done-up card with the foundation and everything on it.
Yeah, and the actual
Eventually, yeah.
Like I said, we want
laterals.
them. We need them.
The
It's
guy
amazing
that-
how quickly you forget where you put something in.
Oh, yeah.
Happens fast.
One of the residents, that's the clerk for the village, took it upon himself to take the files that we had Staples make of
Yep.
scans where all the cards are in one file. He's separating each out into a separate file.
Awesome.
By street.
Really?
And what he needs is a breakdown. He wants a breakdown, which I haven't followed through on yet. You remember he wanted to know which zone
Right by.
each of the houses are?
Oh, yeah, true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we have a map. I think there's a fluid map that has the zones drawn out to show. I don't know how exact it is of where the houses are.
Well, you've got, yeah, right, and as long as it's within reason, you've got a couple new zones that you'd have to, the Rhinebeck pressure zone, that might be it. It's the
Maybe.
Rhinebeck, yeah, Riggy going down past that one.
And there's no big change with the Jungfrau PRV changing where
Nope,
they,
that PRV was an existing,
it just moved
replace-
physically,
yeah.
but the zone's the same.
Oh.
yeah,
right.
all the same houses are still on it. Okay, good, I'll get you guys over whatever we have from this last construction season. Okay?
So maybe Nick will be here in February.
Or even if he's doing another one this month and you can give me some heads up on it or
All right,
something,
okay.
yeah, let me know.
Okay.
I can come. So I might be gone or unavailable that first, I don't know when that's gonna fall, that first week of February. I think I'm unavailable
Okay.
through the 3rd or 4th or something. So I might end up at the second meeting of the month depending on where that Tuesday
Okay.
falls. I don't know yet.
Tuesday
February
is the 4th of
4th.
February and the 11th of February.
Okay, so why don't, if I can plan for the 11th, that would be,
Okay.
because I'm not exactly sure. what days I'll actually be gone, so.
Beautiful.
Okay,
Thank you.
excellent, thank you guys.
Thank you, Ian.
Have
No,
a fantastic afternoon,
Yeah.
late morning.
Hold your hats on.
Yeah, thanks guys.
So we're going.
All right, so you're gonna head up to Ryan and.
So at, let's see, 10:59,
10:59,
we'll move on to
administrators.
administrators report.
I don't have anything.
Any questions for Jennifer?
Yeah, since we're sort of
Thanks, buddy.
been talking about the water
Thank you,
system. I'm just curious, I'm not, my wife is, she's always checking the real estate market. And she's always curious about what houses are on the market in Idlewise and what have sold. And she mentioned something sold recently, I don't know, I think it was on Edelboden, you know, it was like, but then it occurred to me, well, wait a minute. When a house changes hands and ownership, how do we track that for the purposes of getting the water bill to the new owner, which we'll be doing in a couple months here?
I hear from title companies because they want to know that if the previous water bill for that year or has been paid. And that's generally how I get new information.
Okay, so when they're doing the true up between, you know, adjusting the final purchase price.
Correct.
Okay, all right, so the title companies get saying that,
They reach out to me.
let's say 26 Edelboden is
Yep,
now,
and
this
they
is the new
provide me
owner?
with all the information on the new
Okay,
owners.
and that happens in pretty timely fashion?
And we can work with,
Tom?
with the town to get back on to the schedule where, when new owners, things from Carroll County
Right.
Registry are received by the town, that we get a copy of anything that changed hands in Idlewise.
Right, because they could be those
Because
ones
there's a
that
lot of
don't use
vacant,
titles.
you know, exactly, there's ones that don't use title companies, and there's, you know, other situations. There could be a lot that they haven't said anything that there is a water bill for it, you know? And even the title company might not know to contact us for it.
Correct.
You know, but we can find that through the town. So there's a couple of ways for us to get that information.
Okay, all right. So then all I would request is, you know, once you have the whole, hopefully 100% good list for this year's mailing, just send me a copy of it like you did before, because I have to then adjust
Sure.
my Excel spreadsheet in case we need to do another mailing in the future.
Oh.
That's all. And it'll just
Yeah.
be, you know, I can easily, you know, it takes a while, but I can figure out which ones are gonna change and manually update the spreadsheet. Okay, that's all. That's all I wanted to know.
Could you tell us what happened with the water system at the office yesterday?
The pipes that keep freezing.
What happened again?
It happened again.
And you called?
I did call a plumber that you found a name for. I
Who
haven't heard
told?
anything back. Well, I didn't expect a call back that day, yesterday.
Which plumber did you?
I asked her to call her tow.
Okay.
Yeah, which is right down the street, it's not very far. But the water did come back on. I left the water, kind of turned a little bit, and I did overnight as well, when I left.
I had turned the sink in the DPW had cold water, and I put that on a drop. I didn't get a chance to
Yeah.
tell them that I did that, to leave it on.
Oh, did you?
Still dripping?
But
Yeah.
that, I don't know if that helped. You guys should look at that bathroom and see the opening. That bathroom was redone by the previous board and the contractor. And why don't you look at the insulation in the wall?
Or lack of? Is that what we'd be looking
Well,
at?
You
Well,
can't see it.
they
It's
had-
hidden behind the drywall.
It looks more like what's in a stuffed animal than the pink fiberglass that I'm used to
Huh.
seeing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm happy to hear that you have water again.
Yeah,
But if it's happened twice now, it's gonna happen again.
yeah, if it
So at
keeps.
some point we need to do a fix
Yeah,
on
so
the insulation.
That's my point, is that we need to have somebody see what's causing this. It's gotta be a cold problem, because
It definitely
it's a cold
is.
problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hey, this is New
Because it's
Hampshire.
cold, yeah.
Anything else for Jennifer?
I talked to Northway yesterday about getting the payment to the bond bank by wire or ACH.
Oh, yeah, the copy I gave you.
So, I'm gonna do that a day before it's due next week. so
Right.
Make sure
Do-
it gets.
The 15th, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go in on Tuesday, make sure that's gone out okay.
And you mentioned to me during the week that there's a truck payment
Yep,
that's an automatic withdrawal.
yep,
And do we
Out
know?
of Bank of New Hampshire?
yep. How much money we got in there?
Do we know the date that that's happening?
Why is everybody looking at me?
I'm looking at Dinah. Until you start to talk, and then I looked at you.
Why?
I won't do that again.
I think it's the 18th of January.
Okay, good to know.
We want to nail that down.
Oh, yeah,
Because
well,
you're juggling these bank balls right now, right?
Yeah, not really.
Is the payroll switched over?
Yes, finally heard back yesterday afternoon.
I told Jennifer that I had heard, I didn't hear the full story, I wasn't in the room listening to it, but the stock network was talking about Paychex merging with a big competitor. So if
Maybe
they-
that's part of what's happening.
or things could get worse.
Yeah.
They just get worse. They don't get any better.
So what do you mean switch over?
They're
Switch
gonna-
from
they're-
having Paychex take the money, get the money out of the bank in New Hampshire to
Oh,
start
to
getting
the other
it
bank.
Northway.
Yes.
Right, okay. So,
She was trying to get it so she could reconcile everything last year
Oh,
against
yeah,
Bank of New
yeah, that
Hampshire.
part I
It doesn't sound
understand.
like that worked out
so
so easily.
I kind of floated this idea when you were getting frustrated with paychecks a few weeks ago that maybe we should try a local accounting firm to do the
Yeah.
payroll for us,
We can certainly look into
which
that.
would be they'd be much more responsive. If that's the case, I'm willing to do invest. We already, I think I got some information the last time we did that, and we just thought, since Paychex have been used before, it's a national known firm, they're supposed to be experts at this stuff, but unfortunately,
It's not like it used to be.
yeah.
And someone has already told me that it is not like it used to be at all.
Okay, well, I'll be more than happy to do a little investigation on local North Conway accounting firms that take on, will do payroll, and how hard can this be? How many people do we have on payroll?
I
7?
think Anchor Business might do that, just as a
Who?
anchor
Anchor Business, are they an accounting firm? What are they?
accounting company.
Anchor, all right.
Actually, more bookkeeping, I think, right? There's no CPA then, I don't think. Is
I
there?
don't know.
No need to be a CPA for,
Accounting?
no, for payroll. A lot of
Right,
it,
that's
but-
what I'm saying, it's more.
But it's more reassuring that if it is a CPA, that they do have a CPA on staff.
More money.
All right, I'll look into that.
So, at 11:07, was that you, Carol?
Good gracious.
At 11:07, we'll go by old business table items, there's nothing there, to signature items, 2025 holiday vacation schedule. This is where we see if the employees snuck any new holidays in.
Oh, shoot.
You missed your chance.
You think that's funny?
Employee appreciation.
No, I know it
Yeah,
happened.
right, okay,
I
I'm
know it
writing it right
happened.
now.
And nobody was paying
My
attention.
birthday. When's your birthday?
Third.
I'm sure that was a mayhem
I sent a copy
insertion.
around, but I have a copy here.
Okay,
I want to see it, please.
yeah.
Count them.
I don't know, I don't have a calendar on me, so I can't completely, I validated
That was the
everything
one
at
that
the
snuck in.
office, so I can't,
Some of them are half days, right?
at least a couple in there are.
Like Christmas Eve and.
Okay, so I would look at Christmas and New Year's Eve for 2025. If there's gonna be if we're gonna be closed half day on Wednesday, the holiday is Thursday, this is the type of situation where most companies
Give you Friday.
will give you Friday.
Like any
Um,
companies I used to work for,
Well, because you always worked for a bank.
I know.
See, that's what I mean.
Yeah. I was gonna say it.
That would
Banks,
give-
banks and
Okay. Now, you proposing
Postal
for-
people.
over the Christmas and New Year's or just Christmas?
I would do both.
Okay, in that case, I'd be okay with that if we get rid of this one. This one was the one that was inserted covertly by, not the commissioners. So, there's still, they're still ahead of the game.
Freezing.
The June 19th one is,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say that's the one we could get rid of, but give the Friday, so it's a long, long
I was
weekend.
gonna say at least Christmas.
Oh,
If you don't want to do the New Year's one, then fine. But I would think
Oh,
at
I
least
agree.
at least
I
at
agree.
Christmas
I
it would
agree.
make sense to not have them have Tuesday and Wednesday or Wednesday and Thursday off and then have to come in on Friday. You know.
especially for Christmas.
Yeah, I
I would
think-
trade it in a heartbeat with,
The June, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Chris, that makes so much more sense. And I think I'm okay with New Year's too, as long as, well, we know we have, if there's storm events, we're still covered.
So what's the motion?
All right, I will make a motion to eliminate Thursday, June 19th as a holiday and to amend the Christmas holiday to still close on Christmas Eve, full day off Thursday, Christmas Day, full day off Friday, December 26th, which then brings them into the weekend, so they have a nice long weekend.
For the 225 plan, because now it's day specific.
Yes,
Right,
this is for
this is strictly for
2025.
it is
2025.
And that June holiday was never a New Hampshire declared holiday.
Correct.
Correct.
It's not,
It was,
but it is on the list. So
Right. But that was slipped by.
the defunct union
that's a
put that
Kelly
in place.
holiday.
So that motion's been made and seconded by?
Second.
Nancy seconds it.
Yep.
All in favor, if there's no more discussion?
Aye.
3-0?
I
3-0. So now we move on to commissioners' reports at 11:11. And I'll start it off by saying that I was gonna propose that we talk about buying 20-mile-per-hour signs.
Oh, yeah, right.
And I went down into the garage to get into the corrosion control facility to start stuffing the curb stop books into sheet protectors. And time myself to see how long it takes to do. And I noticed that in the corner of the garage, there are 20-mile-per-hour signs.
Oh, there are.
There's also a Geneva Place sign. I was gonna mention that.
Oh,
Geneva
yes,
Place-
it's missing, yeah.
It's missing at Geneva Place. Well,
it's in
the funny
garage.
thing, there's a pole at Geneva Place with no sign on it.
Right.
But in the garage, there's a pole lying on the ground with the sign on it. So there may be two signs for Geneva Place that are missing.
On the opposite end.
One's the whole pole, which they have.
Yeah.
So anyway, I didn't bring that up with Jeff because
Yep.
And it's January,
I'm
so
not
we're
gonna
not
propose
going to be
buying
doing
any
it
signs
now.
now until I go through what their pile looks like in there.
Right.
Right.
But signs are,
All right, great.
So we have some
How
spare
many,
signs.
how many 20-mile-per-hour signs did you find?
I didn't pick the pile up.
Okay,
I
fine.
was on another mission and
Okay.
said, look at 20-mile-an-hour signs on there.
All right.
So, I called New Hampshire Homeland Security Emergency Management this morning to tell them that we're coming into our budget season where we have to have a warrant the first week in February for the public hearing. And can they tell me anything about what is happening with FEMA that would influence what I want to do with the budget, what we want to do with
Right.
the warrant? So, it so happened that I was calling Holly Evans at Homeland Security in New Hampshire. She works for New Hampshire. And the program manager that has been leading the video calls every Thursday all summer long, Maurice Carter, was sitting next to her.
Oh, wow.
She gave him the phone, and he said that they're obligated for the ditching project. And obligated means that FEMA is obligated to turn the money over to the state of New Hampshire. The state of New Hampshire has to decide to give it to us.
Right.
I'd like to know what the state of New Hampshire does with it if they don't give it to us.
Yeah.
That's $463,000, of which we pay 25% and they pay 75%. So there's an indication that we might have to have a warrant article to raise 25% of $463,000. And they said I need to generate another letter of extension for that. Seems like I've been writing letters of extension for a long time, several times over the last year now.
How long does letters last for?
I never get confirmation that the last letter was approved. I don't know whether they... But they did say that they sent a letter to us about this from FEMA. And I said, hard copy or email? And they said, hard copy. And I said, I never saw that. But
never
we have
saw
a meeting
anything.
today and I'll bring that up.
Yes, please.
So I'll tell them that we did not receive that.
No,
So I've never received anything about extensions that I've
me
done.
neither.
So I actually said to them, has this been one exercise in data collection by FEMA to talk to me every week all summer and not telling me?
That it's moving.
getting anything?
We're getting, yeah,
And he was quick to say, no.
yeah.
He said, we're obligated for the
Ditching.
463 to the state of New Hampshire. I don't entirely know what that means completely. Like, I don't know what New Hampshire does after that. But then they mentioned another project that they're working on, and that's $217,000 that we may get 75% of. And then there's the road damage. That might be asphalt, 217. I need to go back to the portal. I haven't been into the portal since we broke off video conferencing
Okay.
each week.
Yeah,
Then there's a $270,000 project for road damage, gravel. So that's 463 plus 217 plus 270.
wow.
So I said to Holly after I let Maurice go, can we have a video conference where the entire board is talking to her about what it is that we can nail down that we need to do for this annual meeting? Because I'd like to have them be able to ask you questions, even if you say up front that you may not be able to answer them. Because there's a system about them not representing anything because of this FEMA New Hampshire relationship. It's all one-way communications for the most part. But I think you need to see that yourself.
Yeah,
Because you have me explaining it,
Yeah,
and
okay.
I'm telling you that it's a whole different language they use, and
So Holly's New Hampshire and Maurice is New Hampshire as well?
Maurice is FEMA.
He's FEMA,
yeah.
He's FEMA.
but the New Hampshire district, state.
He's assigned right now, and they switched them out. He's the third guy since I started talking to them that has been
He's been the
on it. I've been
longest.
listening to Mike Brooks talk about it, and I don't know if it's the same people that are dealing with Madison for FEMA, but he's also experienced them switching out on him.
Yeah,
And I think there's a reason for that, is they don't want anybody getting too familiar when they're talking about a little
Yeah.
place like us
But I-
going for
I think if I understand what you're saying,
$800,000.
if FEMA says, hey, this project for, I don't know, 400,000 for VDOE is approved, we approve that, of which, but ultimately, New Hampshire can say, no, we can
Yeah.
redirect that money away from VDOE.
correct.
They get to decide something. I don't know if it's redirect, I don't know what happens if they don't give it to you. I don't know if they're gonna answer that question if we ask that. She has to come back to me and tell me whether they're even gonna authorize a video conference with us.
Right,
That was what she took out of that, is that she'll get back to me after she asked 2 supervisors whether they can even do this. They might say, no, you can't make any kind of representations to them at all. So that's one data point we'll learn.
Right.
Well, it makes you wonder how you get anything done at all, if that's the case. Okay,
the
well,
eagle comes and
Yeah.
drops, or not.
Well-
Isn't that a military phrase?
well, yeah, but it sounds like right now FEMA is not so much the problem as New Hampshire could be.
I couldn't tell you where the problem is. Are they bound by FEMA rules?
Yeah.
It's FEMA money. I don't know what, I don't know. It's not even worth talking about, because I don't know.
I know, if we don't know, but, you know,
Right.
it just makes you, why?
And I ask, but I don't.
Why would
Think
New
you
Hampshire have the
haven't asked
power
more than
to
once.
redirect that money or not approve it if FEMA does?
So she understands that we need to know something to know what warrant articles to create.
Right.
And she's saying, write the extension letters like something's happening. And I'm gonna write the extension letters again, and I'm gonna wait to hear from her as to whether there's a conference. And then I probably wanna sit down in front of the portal, the database, and show you the projects and have you have the numbers in front of you before the discussion starts. Because they can easily lose you in the projects, because they go to their 6-digit code on what the project is. Like, I don't remember that the 738-940 is the
Yeah.
replacement of the pavement.
Right.
They only talk in those numbers.
Right.
It's all coded.
So we're gonna need a
Right.
cheat sheet in front of us.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
So that's that.
okay.
Did you schedule another meeting with them, or just like a conference call?
No,
No.
because she can't even tell me that she can have it.
I getcha. Okay.
I'll stop there.
Okay.
Okay,
You have anything?
no,
You kind of did it with Ian, I think.
yeah. He was here.
Yep.
I said, tried to keep him, no, actually he was pretty focused on that one. I didn't want to go off from tangents, so.
By the way, while I got the PDF of the Riggy PRV from Nick while maybe the meeting was going on here, and it doesn't, it shows the fault, but it doesn't show where the pipes go
No.
out to the roads at all. So anyway, go ahead,
Just
Nancy.
before.
Was unknown at the time.
Okay, so just a couple things with basically with the website. We gotta create 2025. So there was the 2024 minutes tab was added. We need to create a 2025. I don't know if Jennifer knows how to do that or if that was something that you did early on. I'm not sure who did that.
Are you talking the website?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, that's probably something I can do.
Okay. Yeah, so that we create the 2025. I sent around and the deadlines and the information for posting for what's going to be available. So there will be one commissioner, 3-year term, unlike last year where there were multiples. And
Whose spot? Or
Mine.
whose- Oh, it is.
it'll be mine. And because he was appointed after the annual meeting in 2024,
Yeah.
the clerk also needs to be on listed for the open
An open position.
positions, you know, for a 2-year
Okay,
term.
Gotcha.
Since Doug has been acting
Yeah.
clerk, or, you know, actually
Well, you voted him in.
we voted him
when that
in.
started,
We
yeah.
voted him in, so he is the current clerk.
Yeah.
And he's not gonna be available. I would like, I don't know if this needs to be a motion or just general statement. Once we put together the declaration of candidacy forms, which is really just something we'll pull out of the computer, I wanna send one to Doug
Yeah.
so that Doug can, and we can send it to him by email, but he
Yeah.
will need to print it out, sign it, and the original signed has got to be in the office before the end of
January?
candidacy
Which is-
times.
What's the end date?
So that date is
This is the
January
24th?
24th.
Well, that's coming up
Five,
pretty
So
quick.
that's a little, 18 days away. So Doug,
Right.
if you're listening,
Right.
Right.
So like I said, we'll get him the, and we can send that by email,
Yeah.
but as
So
far as if
He's gonna have to like,
if he's going to put himself in and declare himself as the candidate for
Text him.
remaining as the clerk, he will need to print it out. It's just one of these things that you don't normally do these out of state. So
well, can I
this,
ask a question?
so that's why I was asking whether or not you thought it should be a motion that we send it to him, or if we can just do it.
Can't anybody complete the declaration of candidacy if they want?
Yeah.
Yeah, anybody can.
For him?
As long as,
No.
any registered voter
Right,
can come in and
Complete a
declare
form.
themselves that they want to run for any
gotcha,
open office.
very good.
So just simply knowing that he's the existing clerk, if he
Well,
wants to,
yeah.
if he wants to do the 2 years remaining, the 2 years, then he would need to make sure that he gets that
Right,
printed, signed, and that the original be
In the office.
accepted in the office by the 24th.
gotcha,
That's not a vote, that just send it.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
The second budget hearing is 7 days away. even
Yeah.
though so it's got the
we
date
have
of
it on.
February 14th,
Yeah.
Valentine's
Yeah.
Day.
Oh, I didn't put that date on. Okay, so there we go.
okay.
I just added 14.
So is it 24th is the drop dead date or 25th?
24th?
Which is a Friday?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. And it says. we
And that is the
open-
day, that the office needs to be open until 5 PM.
Yeah,
Right.
I noticed that.
So,
Which I can do.
Yep.
As assistant clerk, I'll be there from 3 to, whenever you leave till 5.
Yeah, if necessary.
All right, I just texted Doug, I don't know if he's watching, but I was asking, but
Yeah.
Okay,
Let 'em know.
very
should
good.
we have a short commissioners meeting that ends at 5? Seeing how he's sitting in there?
Oh, that day?
Yeah,
Oh, we could certainly do
do
that.
some hearing preparation.
Yep.
sure.
So we wanna post
Oh,
that.
Doug's watching it. And he acknowledges it. Okay, Doug, that's good. So we will email you that declaration of candidacy form.
Okay,
So we wanna
repeat what
post
you
it,
said?
post a commissioners meeting that starts at 3? On that Friday afternoon?
So it'll be January 24th.
Gotcha,
Thumbs up, he got that. Okay, so we just need to,
at the
you
office.
just email Doug a declaration of candidacy form,
Yep, we'll do that.
and he Rogers all that.
All right, great.
Okay, so that was the one thing I had. Yeah, and the posting of the annual meeting dates and stuff will happen this week, definitely. And we'll also put it on the website,
Yep,
so. And that was what I had.
So before we adjourn, I just wanted to bring up one thing. Public comments. Public comments are not required by the statutes in our meetings.
Right.
They're not part of 91A.
Right.
And the history of public comments for this Board of Commissioners and other boards that I've seen in the state will restrict it to comments. It doesn't mean that it turns into questions and answers.
okay,
A lot of boards will require any questions that need to be answered to be submitted in writing in advance and be part of a scheduled appearance, so that the board is controlling what and when they answer for questions.
Okay.
They're not required by law. They're required by law to make the meetings accessible and everything to be heard and being able to be recorded, any documents
right,
that are part of the public record to be available within a certain amount of time, 91A. So we had a public comments that turned into a prolonged question and answer.
Q&A, yes. Mhm.
Which I won't comment on the quality of that, but I want to let you guys take it as far as you wanted. Then I kind of sensed that there was an ending period,
Yeah.
Yes.
which
it
I
was
think
going
you
just-
both immediately agreed with.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was going around in circles.
Yeah, the whole,
And I thought we answered his
So I just wanted to
questions.
point out that I intentionally let that go It was just watching for when you guys were done.
Yeah.
And I kind of sensed when that time had come. And I don't know if the previous board ever had it turned into a written policy, but they would say that anybody was limited to 2 minutes of public comment
I don't know.
if they went to public comment, and they would stop public comment if they had a narcissistic antagonist showing up.
Yeah,
So I just wanted to point out is that we don't have to have public comments.
Right.
We can say there's no public comments at any time. And I didn't want to send you going through that entire policy book looking for whether they ever wrote down,
I see,
Right,
because I doubted it.
I doubt
Okay.
it.
yeah.
So
Well,
if you want a policy of how long public comments go, or you can play it by ear and just say, public
It's
comments are over
Yeah.
right now.
Mhm.
You've had enough.
yeah,
It's under your control as a board, the majority of the board is.
Right.
Well, and I think you
I
displayed
didn't want,
that.
I wanted that to be an experience, not the example
Right,
of how we're gonna
right.
do this.
Gotcha.
I guess my personal opinion is that public comments is a good public relations thing to have, but,
And I suggest that to people, if they call the office and are wanting to talk about things or whatever, I'm directing them to come
right,
to a
but
meeting.
Mark made a very good point, that public comments, which I didn't know, now I know, that it doesn't become a point where the
Right.
person who's in the public can start questioning us.
Yeah, the
It-
commissioners still have control.
Right. It's not a Q&A session, it's just they can get up, they can
Yeah.
say their piece,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much it.
Correct.
Comments.
If they want to get into that whole Q&A thing, then they have to put themselves on the schedule, right?
Right.
Correct, I
Okay,
agree.
Okay, that's all. As far as the amount of time, we hardly ever have any public comments, but I know that when I used to cover the Simsbury Board of Selectmen meetings, they called it public audience, and it was always at the beginning before the meeting went into session, and every speaker was only given 5 minutes, and the first selectman was there with the timer, boom, the bell,
Yeah,
5 minutes,
well,
they cut him off, and that was it.
that's- yeah.
And basically they said, if you didn't finish, we'll talk to you after the meeting, but that's it. We need to move on to the next person if there is a next person,
Yeah.
or we have to get on with the meeting.
Yep.
But of course, they did it at the head of the meeting, not at the tail
Madison
end.
does that.
Yeah.
What's that?
Madison does that.
Yeah.
And I
But
think it's
Just
a
things to
good,
be aware.
Yeah.
Just
Some
think,
boards-
just for us to be aware.
Some boards do public comments at the beginning and then at the end, so they can comment on what happened during the meeting, and they can come in with a comment on previous meetings.
yeah.
Oh, I see.
It's not documented, it's not required.
It's not required.
Up to the board how they want to do it, so.
Yes.
I don't care whether it's at the beginning or the end, but I think only one
session's
time
good.
is enough.
Yep.
And I think we should limit it to a time. I think 2 minutes is too
Too
little,
short?
but I think 5 minutes is more than adequate. If they're prepared, and let them, I remember,
Well, then let them schedule it for
there was this
appearance.
one woman, we called her the gadfly, she was there, she was there, she had everything
Right, we're not
written
yet
out.
done.
Yeah.
And you could tell, she practiced her speech, so she always came in 5 minutes, exactly, every week.
So you can do, you can do that.
Yes, you can do that.
Agenda?
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, there's something in the
correspondence.
correspondence.
Oh, there is.
As for AmeriGas having the community rate for
Yes,
Edelweiss,
thank you.
there is a community rate for Edelweiss, but it is done through AmeriGas. The district is not part of the equation.
Thank you.
When I ask
So-
people, I say, this is not an agreement between the Village District of Edelweiss and AmeriGas. This is a marketing program that AmeriGas does every year at their
Right.
choice, that the village government has nothing to do with.
Right.
Otherwise, they're gonna call you as the customer service person
Correct.
because they think we have a contract that you should be
And
administering
that's
for
what they're
them.
doing.
Right,
And
and
that's
that
not
is,
what's going
that
on.
is not, this is, so they need to contact AmeriGas directly and tell them they're in Edelweiss, give them their address,
Yep.
and ask and make sure that they're on the Edelweiss rate.
Thank
Because
you.
they get people on the phone from AmeriGas that have no idea what they're talking about with the Edelweiss deal.
Right.
Then they turn around and they ask you at the office, and they have to be told right up front, and they get it when you say it that way, is
Yeah.
this is their marketing
Right.
program, their employees should know
Yeah.
about it, and we're
How
not
did
involved at
people
all.
believe, or led to believe that it was a village district? like,
Simply because they
contract?
know it's the district and
The
it's,
Edelweiss rate.
it's the Edelweiss rate.
How did the
Yeah,
Edelweiss
I-
rate get
I get it.
determined?
Yeah.
It was with Edelweiss.
It
Well,
must-
who in Edelweiss?
okay.
The EPOA, the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
It's not.
it was
Yeah.
determined by them, and they just let the people that are already customers know, and then there's word of mouth it's a $2.03 per gallon this year.
You found out?
Yeah,
Someone,
all the people
That are signed up
that
for
signed
it.
up for it answered the
it.
question on Facebook for somebody who's saying, what is
Oh,
this deal and
that's
how much is it?
interesting.
They say, I got my last bill, it was $203.
hey,
That's the only way I know. I don't buy propane.
yeah,
I burn wood.
yeah. Okay.
And I didn't read anything about a diving
Well,
platform,
that was the second inquiry from
Um,
the same person.
but no,
Okay,
no, there is no diving.
Too shallow then.
It's too shallow.
okay.
And
very
it's
good.
ice.
Well,
Well,
Well, there used to be a swim float there, but
Ladies.
it just disintegrated.
the swim float is not a diving platform,
Okay. So,
and it will not be a diving platform.
okay, gotcha.
A diving
I see
platform
what you're.
allows a specific action on the person to
Right,
create the dive, and that is not
So-
what
so-
these are
so-
for.
so-
if they meant swim
Correspondence.
float, they should have articulated it that way.
Yes,
Okay,
Sorry, I missed it.
yes.
We'll let them do
This
that.
specifically says
About AmeriGas.
Right.
Is AmeriGas on?
platform, diving platform,
Yeah.
and no.
oh boy, the copier's getting worse. The copier didn't, okay, never mind.
It was supposed to be on
Scratch
here.
that,
Okay.
yeah, it's
It
on
wasn't on my
there.
copy?
All right, well, Doug didn't elaborate, but I just got another text. He says, I have an idea, RE printer scanner will communicate what I find out. Might be a way to get it right in a way, then approve for release at annual meeting. I'm not quite sure what this idea is, but we'll hear from
We
him.
can talk about it next week.
Well, okay,
You have
just,
to limit text
Let's get a
messages to 2 minutes.
yeah, okay. Well, just as long as we're talking about that, I know we have to approve it at the annual meeting, but I noticed, who's the woman in town that always sends, the trustee that sends us the capital reserve fund list every
Kathy?
now and then? I
Kathy
guess that-
Moore.
Kathy Moore.
She's one of the trustees.
Well, there was a capital reserve fund for office equipment, I think, in there,
Yeah,
yeah. Could,
To pay for the
that
months until it's
doesn't
ratified?
cover future years.
yes, it's the future year.
That's the issue
The problem
with
is
the
if the
lease.
voters say no,
There's no
and you have the
lease,
copier, what are you doing with the company that put it
Yeah.
in there?
right,
No.
right, so it's not 2025 that I'm worried about as far as the
Right.
lease goes.
No, it's
It's
the-
the
that's-
fact that
and you-
it sets for
yes.
4 years.
Right.
So that's
Okay.
the
That's
whole
the
But
up.
we also discussed if they would be willing to do a lease year by year, as opposed to a long-term lease.
Is we don't have any information on that at this point,
And I'm
so.
sure he's looking into it
Right,
right now.
right,
maybe.
that must be it, because if
Right.
they will do it on an annual basis, and we don't have to do the,
Correct, then we will see,
Flags
we'll see what he
going.
has, you know?
okay, all right.
The wind is crazy.
Okay, we all set?
Motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Thank you.
At 11:37.